Chapter 26. Press Conference. Okay, Master, I've remembered it. After hearing the reply from Little Zudge, Li Heng finally breathed a sigh of relief, because if he had not remembered this matter, he would probably have suffered a huge loss. Fortunately, I thought about it in advance and told Xiao Zudge, so nothing will happen anymore. What Li Heng has to do now is to sell while the stock price is high because he knows what is going to happen, and then wait until Tony announces the closure of the weapons manufacturing department and the stock price falls to the lowest point to buy again. In this way, when Tony announces his identity later, the stock price will inevitably rise wildly. Coupled with the future arc energy, etc., Li Heng can just sit back and wait for him to become a rich man. And if he waits until the stock price is at its lowest and buys more, maybe Li Heng can become one of the shareholders of Stark Group. Thinking of this, Li Heng happily lay down on the bed, ready to have a good rest to relieve the fatigue of searching for Tony in the desert these days. On the other side, Tony had already taken a shower, changed his clothes, and was sitting in Happy's car, eating a cheeseburger and heading to the press conference. Ethan was watching the press conference on TV at home. Tony had just finished the burger in his hand when the car stopped at the door of the press conference. Obadiah walked forward and opened the door. "Oh, Tony, I thought I had to go see you at the hospital." No, I'm fine." As Tony spoke, he turned his head to look for something. Happy quickly came to Tony with a bag of cheeseburgers, and Tony took out a burger from it. Obadiah asked, "Is there a share for me?" "There's only one left." The two walked inside together. Before they reached the place, Tony finished the burger in his hand and came to the press conference with the last burger. Obadiah accompanied him to the podium, while Pepper stayed outside the crowd and just looked at Tony. At this time, a man with a high hairline came over. If Li Heng was here, he would definitely recognize him. "Ms. Pertz, can I ask you a few words?" "No, I'm not here for the press conference, and it's about to start." Pepper turned him down as soon as she pointed to the podium. "I'm not a reporter. I'm Agent Carlson from the Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency." Carlson explained, but Pepper said, "It's a long name. But we've already been approached by many departments and bureaus. Oh, we belong to another system and need to understand the specific circumstances of Stark's escape." "Okay, I'll tell him." At this time, Tony had asked all the reporters to sit down and listen to him, and he said he was ready to do something for society. "So I plan to shut down Stark Industries' weapons manufacturing department as soon as possible." Pepper opened her mouth in surprise below. Li Heng was watching Tony's press conference live on TV. Ethan was very happy after hearing Tony's decision. But Obadiah was clearly caught off guard. "Our purpose today is to inform you that Tony is back and in good health. We will hold a meeting to discuss this matter internally, and we will notify you of the final result in a timely manner." Then Obadiah found Tony after the press conference. "Hey, Tony, how can you say that at a press conference? We are an arms company. If we shut down the weapons manufacturing department, what are we going to do? Sell baby bottles? Besides, we can't continue researching reactor technology. We haven't made any breakthroughs in 30 years. Tony said at this time, "Just tell me directly, no need to hide it, who told you?" "That's not important, just let me see," Obadiah said, looking at the reactor in Tony's chest. Based on Obadiah's reaction, Tony guessed. "It should be those bodyguards." "Okay, I can show you." After Tony showed him the small reactor, Obadiah couldn't help but grin, and then he tried to show his affection to Tony, indicating that he stood with him. "Tony, I need you to get it out so I can shut the board up." After reading it, Obadiah buttoned up Tony's shirt. No. Tony said, "No, it can only be mine. I will take out some other technologies and techniques, but you have to wait for me for a while." Tony disagreed with taking out the small reactor, saying that other technologies were possible, but it would take time. "Well, Tony, I can only try my best to convince the directors. So, you go home and rest first." Obadiah showed that he cared about Tony and said he would help him. Tony was very touched by his performance. "Thank you, Stan." Then Tony went home. Li Heng watched the entire press conference at home. He knew that Tony would soon create a new generation of battlesuits. By then, Iron Man would be born and fight with Ironmonger. This is the voice of Xiao Zudge. "Master, I have followed your instructions completely. I sold Stark Industries stock at the highest point, and then prepared to buy it again at the lowest point. Well done. Li Heng was very confident in what little Zudge did. As long as he asked him to do something, there was nothing he couldn't do well, which made Li Heng worry-free. Tony returned to the villa and made a new reactor to replace the one on his chest. But when replacing it, he encountered some problems, so he had to call Pepper for help. Hey, Pepper, could you come down to the basement and let me see your hands? Pepper came to the basement and saw the reactor on Tony's chest. Is this what saved your life? Yes, it is. But it is outdated now. Tony picked up the new reactor and said, this is the new model I need in the future. I need you to help me replace it because there's a wire underneath it that's shorting it out. I want you to reach in there and pull that wire out. After a fierce ideological struggle and Tony's trust, Pepper finally replaced Tony's reactor with a new one. At the end, Pepper said, please, don't let me do this again. At this time, Tony looked at Pepper affectionately, but I have no choice but you. Then Pepper picked up the old reactor and asked, what should I do with this? Of course, destroy it. Burn it. Chapter 27. Oh. Don't you want to keep it? Pepper, I have many problems, one of which is that I get bored easily. After saying that, Tony turned around and cleaned up the messy desk, while Pepper left the basement with the old arc reactor in her arms, looking thoughtful. Then Tony found Ethan and told him his thoughts. Hey, Ethan. I've got a great idea this time, and I need your help. Looking at Tony's sincere eyes, Ethan thought about it and agreed to help Tony complete his idea. Then the two of them came to the underground studio, and Tony woke up Jarvis. Jarvis, are you awake? At your service. Then Tony said, I need to create a new project document, codenamed Mark II. After Jarvis's questioning, Tony felt that he didn't know who he could trust now, so he saved the file on his own private server. Hey, Ethan, help me figure this out, and then perfect and improve it. Tony then projected the original Mark I model onto the table and called Ethan to optimize it together. The two people first deleted the bulky parts of the model until only the structure was left, and then they started a new design, increasing flexibility and simplifying the volume. Tony was mainly fiddling with the model, while Ethan was offering ideas and opinions. With the two of them working together, and with the assistance of Jarvis, the design process of Mark II seemed to be unusually smooth. At the same time, in the desert of the Middle East, a group of people came to the place where Tony and Ethan escaped, and then kept searching in the desert until they found all the parts of the armor that Tony built in the cave and took them back. Li Heng was training his spatial force at home. Last time he wanted to teleport over a long distance, but he failed because he couldn't control the spatial energy well. He has been working out very hard recently, so Li Heng had a vague feeling of wanting to break through. He sat on the bed calmly, took the Rubik's Cube in his hand, and began to feel the spatial energy in the cube, trying to use more energy. After trying hard for 20 minutes, Li Heng finally felt that he seemed to have reached the limit of his current ability. Then in the next moment, Li Heng realized that the spatial energy he controlled had increased, and his use of spatial power had also reached a new level. This made him very happy, and he prepared to give it a try to see if he could teleport to the moon this time. He first took out his wand and covered himself with a layer of protective film to defend against the problems he would encounter in a vacuum. After everything was ready, Li Heng activated the power of space. A space door opened beside him and Li Heng walked in. Then, the next moment, on the surface of the moon, Li Heng walked out of the space gate. It was not until Li Heng actually stepped on the surface of the moon that he was sure that his mastery of the power of space had increased a lot. Then Li Heng looked up and saw the blue planet in front of him. It looked very beautiful. It turns out that traveling to Marvel is not without its benefits. At least in my original world, I didn't have the chance to stand on the moon and look at the Earth. Li Heng talked to himself. And in the future we will have the opportunity to visit other civilizations in the universe, which was simply impossible before. Li Heng stood here and looked at the Earth for a while before teleporting away. In the few minutes after Li Heng left, a man and a dog appeared where Li Heng had stood before. Jingle bell bell. As soon as Li Heng returned home, he heard his cell phone ringing. Picking up the phone, Li Heng didn't know who called from this unfamiliar number, but although he was a little confused, he still answered the call. Hey, Li. Come to my house right now, I have something good to show you. Li Heng was about to ask who was on the other end of the phone, but was interrupted by Tony's excited voice. asking Li Heng to go to his house. Hearing Tony's excited voice, Li Heng thought, it seems that Mark II is completed, so Tony asked him to go and take a look and show off. Okay, then I'll go over and see what could have made you so excited that you called me in person. Li Heng agreed to let Tony go over. Hey, then hurry up. I promise I'll surprise you. That's it. I'm hanging up. Tony hung up the phone after saying that, but Li Heng could still hear the pride in his tone. Li Heng smiled and shook his head. It seemed that Tony still had that arrogant personality and it hadn't changed. However, Li Heng is also very interested in Tony's Iron Man suit. After all, this is the first opportunity to see it with his own eyes and touch it, so Li Heng is looking forward to it very much. Then Li Heng was teleported directly to the living room of Tony's villa. Hello, Mr. Li. Please follow my instructions. The boss is waiting for you in the basement studio. The moment Li Heng appeared, Jarvis' voice rang out. Okay, thank you Jarvis. Li Heng went down the stairs to the basement. Here, Li Heng saw Tony and Ethan surrounding a silver battle suit, constantly working on some details. Li Heng walked into the workshop and asked. Tony, this is the good stuff you mentioned, right? Li Heng also looked up and down at the battle suit. Wow, it looks pretty good, pretty handsome. After saying that, Li Heng came to Ethan's side and greeted him. Hi, Ethan. But this suit is different from the one you had in the cave. It's a lot thinner. Maybe you guys made some changes, right? Of course. Take a look. It's pretty good, isn't it? Ethan and I worked hard for several days to complete this. But you are right. I made this based on the armor in the cave, and upgraded it. That's why it is called Mark II. Tony proudly introduced it to Li Heng and patted Mark II's arm, as if he was showing off his new toy to Li Heng. Hi, Li, you're here. Ethan also greeted Li Heng. And there he listened to Tony proudly introducing the new suit, and he was also happy that they could design and make such a thing. Li Heng stepped forward and stretched out his hand to touch Mark II. Then, at the moment of touch, Li Heng activated the system's ability to copy Mark II. So, in the system space, an identical copy of the Mark II appeared. Then Li Heng thought of Tony's experiment on Mark II in the movie and thought about its problems. So Li Heng took out his magic wand and said. Indeed, this suit looks very high-tech, but I wonder if it is antifreeze. Chapter 28. Then, under the surprised gaze of Tony and Ethan, Li Heng waved his wand, released a ray of freezing air, and hit Mark II. Then we saw the freezing air covering the surface of Mark II, forming a layer of ice. Oh, no, no, no. Li, you can't do this. It hasn't been tested yet, and its performance cannot be confirmed. When Tony saw the ice, he quickly shouted loudly, wanting Li Heng to remove the ice on the surface of Mark II. Ethan asked Li Heng, Li, what is that in your hand? How can it emit cold air? Ethan waved his own hand, pretending that he also had a wand in his hand, and then asked Li Heng what that was. Li Heng laughed, and amid Tony's shouts, he waved his wand again, eliminating the freezing magic and restoring Mark II to its original state. Then Li Heng looked at the wand in his hand and answered Ethan's question. Oh, are you asking this? This is my magic wand. I can use the magic wand to use magic to achieve different effects. Do you want to try it? Li Heng didn't listen to Ethan's answer and directly used the levitation technique on Ethan, floating Ethan in the air, about 1 meter above the ground. After Li Heng cancelled the magic, Tony fell into deep thought because he discovered the flaw of Mark II from Li Heng's actions. Oh, I forgot to consider the situation of icing at high altitudes. If we wait until we really reach the sky and the engine freezes and dies, we will fall down. That would be terrible. Finally, Tony figured out the problem and turned to Ethan. But he saw a scene that violated the laws of science. Ethan was floating in the air 1 meter above the ground without the help of any machine, dancing and looking very excited. However, this scene really scared Tony. It was not until he saw Li Heng waving the magic wand that he realized that Li Heng was the culprit. Oh. Shit. What's going on? What happened? How did you do it? Tony asked 3 questions in a row, expressing his doubts. Then he walked forward to Ethan's side, stretched out his hand and touched around Ethan tentatively, trying to make sure that Ethan really had nothing to rely on. After he confirmed it, he became even more confused, and then looked at Li Heng, ready to listen to what Li Heng had to say. I've already told you that this is magic. But when I told you, you didn't believe it. Li Heng waved his wand and dropped Ethan from mid-air. Wow, cool. After landing, Ethan felt very satisfied because he had just flown, although not too high. This is what Tony said. So the magic you mentioned is real? I thought you just didn't want to tell me and that was an excuse. But, is there really magic in this world? Well, Li Heng knew that Tony wouldn't believe it easily, so he shrugged and said nothing more. Okay. Seeing that Li Heng didn't want to talk anymore, Tony could only call Ethan and prepare to continue modifying Mark II. Ethan, we need to modify the Mark II. Jarvis, contact Cisco for me and place an order for titanium alloy, which is an aviation material, the metal for the Seraph satellite. Tony asks Jarvis to place an order for the latest alloy to enhance the suit. Then after all the problems were solved, Tony started to put on the battle suit and conduct experiments. Okay, next is the first experiment. Let's see if 10% of the thrust can make it fly. Li Heng on the side was about to remind him, but before he opened his mouth, he saw Tony being hit directly into the ceiling by the huge thrust, and then Benben used a fire extinguisher on Tony. Li Heng laughed beside him, and Ethan quickly stepped forward to help Tony up. At the same time, those who found all the parts of the armor in the desert returned to the cave, took out the drawings left by Tony, and restored it according to the drawings to see what was missing. Later they discovered that the arc reactor on the chest was missing. After completing the test, Tony flew out directly wearing the battlesuit. Tony was very excited to wear the battlesuit for the first time, shouting and laughing loudly like a child. Li Heng looked at Tony and thought that this might be the first time Tony put on the Iron Man suit, and it should also be the happiest time. It was not until Tony flew back that he made some modifications to the problem he encountered. Then when Tony was modifying the palm cannon, Pepper suddenly came to the basement studio and happened to see Tony wearing a battlesuit arm. Then Li Heng and Ethan exchanged glances, and the two of them quietly came to the side with an expression of watching a good show. Li Heng found Tony's wine again, and poured a glass for Ethan. The two clinked glasses, ready to see how Tony would get away with this. Hey, Tony, didn't you say at the press conference that you are no longer making weapons? So what is this? He looked at Tony's suit and asked him angrily. Oh, Pepper, listen to me, it's not dangerous, and it's not a weapon. Tony hurriedly explained to Pepper, but accidentally activated the palm cannon, which fired directly and blew all the papers on the table away. Oh, Pepper, this is not. Tony was incoherent and didn't know what to say. He looked at Li Heng, and Li Heng continued. This is Big Boy Tony's new toy, right, Tony? Ha 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 ha. After saying that, Li Heng and Ethan burst into laughter. What? You said this is a toy? It was obvious that Pepper didn't quite believe what Li Heng said, and then she looked at Tony, wanting him to explain. Being stared at by Pepper, Tony had no choice but to continue following Li Heng's words. Yes, yes, this is the new toy I made. It won't be dangerous, don't worry. Then Tony tried his best to explain it to Pepper. Seeing Tony like this, Li Heng and Ethan were very happy and said loudly. Okay, Ethan, let's go upstairs and have a drink. Tony is going to flirt with his little assistant. Li Heng said this in the direction of Tony, and Ethan shook his head, watching the joke between Li Heng and Tony. At this time, Tony turned around and said to Li Heng. Li, just wait. Once my suit is upgraded, I will definitely defeat you and get my revenge. Li Heng said, okay, I'll wait for you, come on. Then Li Heng and Ethan came to the living room and sat down to drink and chat. Ethan also wanted to ask Li Heng more questions about magic. Chapter 29. Li Heng clinked glasses with Ethan, and after taking a few sips, he looked at Ethan, who wanted to ask something but hesitated for a long time and didn't know how to ask, and said. Okay, Ethan, stop worrying about it. Just ask whatever you want to ask. Ethan slowly put down the wine glass in his hand. Li, your wand, that's what it says, right? After seeing Li Heng nod in confirmation, Ethan continued to ask. What is the principle behind the magic wand? What is its energy source? Why can it produce different kinds of magic? Li Heng knew that Ethan would ask questions about wands and magic, but he was still frightened by Ethan's 3 direct questions. Putting down the wine glass, Li Heng really thought about Ethan's question seriously. The source of magic power in the wand and the release of magic in the Marvel world should all rely on the materials and production process of the wand itself, so magic materials should not exist in the Marvel world. Li Heng explained it to Ethan very carefully. According to Li Heng's idea, there might only be one magic wand and there won't be a second one. Hearing Li Heng say this, Ethan felt obviously disappointed. After all, after discovering a new field, but having no research object to work on, you can only wander outside the door. This feeling is not pleasant. Li Heng saw Ethan's expression and continued to speak to him. However, although I don't have a second magic wand, there are still magicians in this world. What, are you telling the truth? Of course, but I don't know if I can find them now. If you encounter magicians in the future, I will help you get in touch with them, but you have to promise me that before I find them and say hello, you can't tell anyone else about their existence, not even Tony. When Ethan saw Li Heng's sudden serious expression, he knew the seriousness of the matter, so he quickly said, I won't tell anyone, don't worry. Well, after seeing Ethan's assurance, Li Heng continued. When you meet the wizard, I can lend you my wand to study and see if you can learn something from them so that you can make a new wand. Ethan was attracted by what Li Heng said and began to look forward to that time. While the two were talking, Tony came up from the basement. Hey, Ethan, Li, come down and help me, there's only a little more to improve the suit. Seeing the two people chatting, Tony couldn't help but ask them to come and help. Tony didn't want them to drink while he was busy. Li Heng saw Tony come to the bar, pour a glass of wine, drink it in one gulp, and then go back to the basement. So Li Heng and Ethan followed Tony back to the basement and began to help Tony make the final improvements. It was not until the evening that the improvement of the battle suit was officially completed. At this time, Li Heng saw the silver battle suit and said, Hey, Tony, don't you think the silver suit doesn't look good? What do you think of that color? Hearing Li Heng's question, Tony suddenly felt that the silver battle suit did not look very good, so he looked in the direction of Li Heng's finger. Then Tony saw his red and gold sports car, and his eyes lit up. Wow, Li, I didn't expect your taste to be the same as mine. This color is exactly what I like. Jarvis, spray paint my suit accordingly. Tony asked Jarvis to spray paint it, and in just a few minutes, the brand new Iron Man suit was ready. A few people walked closer to take a look and found that the new paint matched the appearance of the Iron Man suit and looked very harmonious, which made Tony very satisfied. Just then, Tony saw on TV that there was a third annual charity ball held in his name for the Firefighters Family Foundation at the Disney Concert Hall. After Tony asked Jarvis, he found out that he had not received an invitation, so Tony asked Li Heng and Ethan. There happens to be a dance. Do you want to go with me? Ethan was still hesitant, but Li Heng agreed directly and persuaded Ethan. Ethan, you can't just stay at home all the time. It's good to go out for a walk. After hearing what Li Heng said, Ethan decided to go to the dance with them. Then Tony drove his Audi R8, and Li Heng picked out a less conspicuous car from Tony's garage, and took Ethan to the dance. Although it was the most low-key car among all Tony's cars, when Li Heng drove it to the dance party, many beautiful women still looked at it. When they saw Li Heng coming down from the driver's seat, some were attracted by his tall figure and Chinese face, and then prepared to find an opportunity to talk to Li Heng. When Li Heng and the others arrived, Tony was already dancing with Pepper, so Li Heng took Ethan directly to the bartender, ordered 2 glasses of wine, and started drinking. At this time Li Heng saw Carlson not far away, and S.H.I.E.L.D. was still trying to get the specific information of Tony's escape, but because they couldn't stop Tony and ask directly, they probably didn't know for the time being that it was Li Heng who rescued Tony. However, Li Heng adhered to the attitude that as long as you don't provoke me, we will live in peace, so he didn't pay attention to Carlson, but waited while drinking. Because Li Heng knew what happened next, that is, when Tony came back from the balcony, a woman found Tony and showed him several photos, which triggered what happened next. Not long after, Li Heng saw Tony coming back from the balcony and coming to the bar. Hey, I thought you two weren't here. Why don't you find a partner and dance together? Tony asked teasingly as he told the bartender he would like 2 vodka martinis. Ethan replied, Oh, the environment here makes me uncomfortable. I want to go back. Li Heng didn't say anything because he knew the woman was about to come. Sure enough, when Ethan finished speaking, a short-haired woman came up to Tony, introduced herself, and took out a stack of photos for Tony. He also pointed out, at the beginning, I really believed everything you said. Is this what you call responsibility? The place in the photo is called Gumila. Have you heard of it? At this time, when he heard Gumila's name, Ethan's mood obviously changed. He was no longer anxious and wanted to leave. Instead, he tilted his ears, ready to listen to what the woman wanted to say. Li Heng noticed the changes in Ethan, because he knew that the small town the woman was talking about was Ethan's hometown. Chapter 30. Tony flipped through the photos in his hand and found that the weapons that appeared were all from Stark Industries. After asking, he learned that these photos were taken yesterday. I didn't approve any deals, Tony said. But this is your company's doing. My company is not me. At this time, Ethan couldn't bear it anymore and asked, Tony, what happened to my hometown? Ethan took the photos from Tony and looked at them. Then Ethan said to Tony tremblingly, Tony, I know this wasn't done by you, but I hope you can help my hometown and help those people. Tony looked at Ethan like this and became more and more angry. Okay, Ethan, don't worry, I will take care of this matter. After comforting Ethan, Tony went out to find Obadiah. Li Heng came to Ethan at this time, patted Ethan on the shoulder and said, Ethan, don't worry. I believe Tony can handle the company's affairs. We will deal with the terrorists. Tony went to question Obadiah, while Li Heng prepared to leave with Ethan. Without having to listen, Li Heng knew that Obadiah admitted that it was he who applied for an injunction from the board of directors, preventing Tony from working. Just as Li Heng was about to leave, Pepper, who could not wait any longer on the balcony, came over. Hey, Li, Ethan, hello. Have you seen Tony? Oh, Pepper. Tony went out temporarily to talk to Obadiah about something, so. Li Heng shrugged, indicating that Tony had something to do and would probably leave. Okay, have fun then. After saying that, Pepper continued to chat with others. Seeing this, Li Heng thought, Tony, you owe me another small favor. I also saved you from a small emotional crisis at the dance. Tony, who learned the truth from Obadiah outside, drove back to the villa alone. When Li Heng brought Ethan back, Tony had already started putting on the Iron Man suit. Seeing Tony's behavior, Li Heng knew that Tony was planning to go to Ethan's hometown, Gumara, to rescue those people and to destroy the weapons sold from Stark Industries. Ethan, I'm really sorry. I didn't know my company would do something like this. But don't worry, I will make it up to you. Tony looked at Ethan with bloodshot eyes and assured him. Okay, Tony. I know, and I don't blame you. I just hope you can save them while keeping yourself safe. Seeing Tony putting on the Iron Man suit, Ethan also knew Tony's decision, so he didn't say much. Tony, wearing the Iron Man suit, flew directly to the town of Gumara under the instructions of Jarvis. After Tony left, Li Heng asked Ethan. Ethan, do you want to go along and see how Tony solves it? Ethan was very surprised and looked at Li Heng. Oh, Li, you mean, can I go and see it too? Of course. How about coming with me to take a look? Li Heng asked Ethan again, and this time Ethan obviously couldn't help it. After hesitating for a while, he decided to go and see what was happening in his hometown. Then Li Heng took Ethan directly to Gumara. Because Li Heng and his team set out late, when they arrived, they saw Tony facing several terrorists who were holding hostages and were in a stalemate. Just at this time, Li Heng brought Ethan out of the space door next to him, attracting the attention of the terrorists. Tony then took advantage of this time to lock the terrorists' heads one by one, and then fired bullets from his shoulders, hitting the terrorists' heads at the same time and rescuing the hostages. However, after seeing his hometown become like this, Ethan became sad and depressed. Li Heng, who saw this scene, wanted to ease the atmosphere, so he said to Ethan. Look, Tony still needs me to attract attention so that he can solve the problem smoothly, so these heads are all mine. Tony was immediately unwilling when he heard this. Hey, Li, you can't do this. Even if you don't come, I can still deal with them well. I've already targeted them. But Li Heng ignored Tony because Ethan didn't react to their conversation and was immersed in sadness and sorrow. Li Heng walked over and patted Ethan on the shoulder. Ethan, we are here to save them and make up for the mistakes made by Stark Industries. If you still feel unhappy, why don't you go back and find out the real mastermind behind it, and then seek revenge on him? How about that? After hearing what Li Heng said, Ethan's eyes gradually regained their luster and asked, Is it okay? Li Heng and Tony looked at each other and nodded. Of course you can. Tony and I will support you. Yes, I support you. But the most urgent task is to deal with the terrorists here first. Tony continued to look for terrorists and killed them all, while Li Heng stayed with Ethan to prevent him from being accidentally injured. Then Li Heng and Ethan watched Tony, and after clearing out the terrorists, he blew up the nearby tanks and weapons and ammunition. Then he landed on the ground in front of Li Heng and Ethan, opened his mask. "I have cleaned up everything here, and I have cleaned up the surrounding area as well." As Tony finished speaking, he saw Ethan walk over to the injured people and prepare to start bandaging them. At this time, Li Heng spoke up, "Ethan, wait, let me do this part." Li Heng took out his magic wand and said, "Heal and restore to normal." Li Heng cast 2 spells in succession, and then Ethan saw the man's wounds heal quickly until it was no longer possible to tell that he had been injured. After helping Ethan treat everyone, the 3 prepared to return. "Tony, are you going back with us? Or are you going on your own?" Li Heng opened the space door and turned to look at Tony. Tony put down his mask directly, "Of course I will go back by myself." As soon as he finished speaking, Tony took off. Seeing Tony like this, Len shook his head, because he knew that Tony was discovered by the United States Air Force on his way back and lost a plane. But since Tony wanted to go back by himself, Li Heng didn't stop him. After all, it was just a false alarm, and Rhodes cleaned up Tony's mess, so in the end nothing happened. Li Heng didn't bother to care. Then Li Heng and Ethan returned to Tony's villa, eating the burgers and pizza ordered by Jarvis while waiting for Tony to come back. Chapter 31. When Li Heng and Ethan returned to the villa, Tony encountered some problems. Originally, after seeing Li Heng and Ethan leave, Tony flew straight into the sky, making a sonic boom in the sky, and flew directly back to the United States. But when Tony happily flew over the United States, the military base he had just blown up and his flight trajectory were detected by Edwards Air Force Base in California. The officer at the base said, "Ask the Department of Defense, the CIA, the Navy, etc. if this is their plane." "Sir," they all said it wasn't theirs. "What I want is the answer. Give me the clearest image of the target. Now go get Lieutenant Colonel Rhodes from the Weapons Development Department, immediately." After saying that, the officer turned to the person next to him and asked him to ask Rod to come over to discuss and see if he knew what this plane that suddenly appeared was. At this time, Tony, who was flying in the sky, didn't know that he had attracted the extreme attention of the military base, when his identity was still unknown and he had never seen the Iron Man suit. "We've authenticated and checked all the databases and found nothing." Just as his men were reporting, Rhodes came in. "Why can't I see it on the radar?" Rod asked. "Because its radar cross-section is so small." "Is it a stealth aircraft?" "No, sir, it's very small, I guess it's a drone." Hearing this, Rhodes remembered that Tony seemed to be tinkering with something at home some time ago, so Rhodes said, "Let me make a phone call." After saying that, Rhodes went to the next seat and called Tony. Tony, who was flying in the sky, answered Rhodes' call. "Hello, who is it?" "Tony, it's me, Rod. What's making all that noise over there?" "Oh, I'm driving a convertible." "Hey, Tony, one of our arsenals exploded, not far from where you were originally imprisoned." At the same time, the radar at our Air Force Base detected an unidentified object. "Have you researched any new technology? You have to tell me quickly, otherwise we are going to take it down." Just then, 2 fighter jets flew behind Tony and followed him closely. Tony quickly dodged the fighter's attack. Even when the opponent launched a missile, Tony asked Jarvis to release jammers and barely blocked the opponent's missile. After that, Tony called Rhodes again. It was Rhodes's personal phone, not the base's phone. "Hey Rod, it's me." "Who is it?" Luo asked in a deliberately puzzled tone. "I'm sorry, it's me you want to know," Tony explained. "No, listen, this isn't a game. You can't send civilian equipment into our combat zone, do you understand?" Tony said in the Iron Man suit, "This is not an Iron Man suit, I am inside it, this is a suit, it is me." Rhodes was stunned when he heard Tony say this. At this moment, the 2 fighter planes were preparing to return, and a pilot found Tony clinging to the bottom of another plane. "There seems to be a person under you. Roll over, get rid of him." Immediately afterwards, Tony was thrown out, but hit the wing of the plane, forcing the pilot to parachute to escape. But after jumping out of the plane, the buckle of the parachute could not be opened. It was then that Tony flew over and helped him successfully open the parachute, allowing the pilot to land safely. Seeing this, Rhodes breathed a sigh of relief and said again on the phone. Hey, Tony, you crazy guy, you owe me a plane, did you know that? Ha ha ha. Tony laughed, actually, it hit me. Li Heng, who had been asking Xiao Zhuzh to help check on Tony's condition through headphones, learned from Xiao Zhuzh's report that Tony was about to return home, so he and Ethan went to the underground studio to wait for Tony to come back. Sure enough, after a while, Tony, wearing the bullet-riddled Mark III, fell on the suit disassembly mechanism. Tony shouted "Ah, ah!" and took off his suit piece by piece with the help of Ethan and Jarvis. Li Heng said at this time, "Hey, isn't this Tony? He looks like he was beaten badly by a fighter jet. Look at the damage and marks on his suit, wow." After hearing what Li Heng said, Ethan asked Tony. "Tony, you weren't really beaten up by a fighter plane, were you?" Ethan also participated in the design and production of the suit and knew the true bulletproof performance of the suit. However, after being reminded by Li Heng, he found that there were indeed many more traces of the battle. "Oh, Ethan, you can't say that. In fact, I beat up the two F-22s, not me being beaten by them." Tony was still stubborn and didn't want to admit it, but Li Heng didn't tolerate him and directly exposed his past. "Oh? Really? Didn't you ask Rod to clean up your mess? Ha ha ha, this is what happens when you don't come back with us and want to fly back by yourself but don't report it." Just then, Pepper came down from the building and saw the marks on Tony's body. "What's going on? Are those bullet holes?" "Oh, well, it's not the first time that Pepper has found out. I'll take it." Tony spoke in a low voice and was heard by Li Heng. But Li Heng had no intention of saying anything good for him. Instead, he pulled Ethan and quietly slipped away from the stairs. After all, this is a matter between Tony and Pepper, and Li Heng and Ethan don't want to get involved, so in Tony's surprised eyes, Li Heng pulled Ethan and ran away, leaving Tony standing there without taking off his battlesuit. Finally, after some painstaking explanations, Tony finally calmed Pepper down, but Pepper disagreed to let him continue with such actions. When Li Heng pulled Ethan upstairs, he just received the evidence sent by Xiao Zhuzh. It was Li Heng who asked Xiao Zhuzh and Zhuan Lun to secretly hack into Stark Corporation and find evidence that Obadiah betrayed Tony and secretly sold weapons. Li Heng showed the evidence to Ethan. "Ethan, look, it was Obadiah who secretly sold weapons in your company." "What? Let me see." Ethan took the evidence from Li Heng's hand and looked at it carefully. Just at this time, Tony coaxed Pepper and the two of them went upstairs together. Tony also wants Pepper to help him go to Obadiah's office to see which terrorists he has arms deals with. Just then, Li Heng heard Tony's proposal and said, "Hey, Tony, there's no need to let Pepper go. I already have the evidence here." Chapter 32. Tony was shocked when he heard what Li Heng said. "What? How did you know I wanted this? And since Obadiah's office is not connected to the internet, how did you get this information?" Tony took the information from Li Heng with doubts, and asked Jarvis to calculate whether it was true. "Sir, after calculation, it can be found that Mr. Li's information should be accurate." This time Tony was really surprised. "Hey, Li, can you tell me how you got this information?" Tony waved his right hand and said, "Could it be that you used some mysterious magic?" Li Heng chuckled and said, "Of course it's no problem, but I didn't use magic. In fact, I have two partners who helped me get the information." "Oh." Tony thought for a moment, it seems that the security in the company is not very good. "I have to strengthen the security level of the company." Tony thought that Li Heng had hired someone to sneak into the company and steal the information. Li Heng also saw Tony's thoughts, and continued, "There's nothing wrong with you increasing security. He's just my friend. He's not actually a human." Hearing this, Tony and Ethan immediately became interested. "You said it's not a human, then what is it? It can't be some strange magical creature that went to the company after becoming invisible, right?" Hearing Tony's guesses getting more and more outrageous, Li Heng said, "Okay, Tony, don't guess anymore. When there's a chance in the future, I'll let you meet my friends, and then you'll know." At this point, Li Heng was already looking forward to how surprised Tony would be when he saw little Zhuzh and Wheel. After all, the life on Cybertron could be connected with technology. Unlike magic, even if Tony wanted to study magic, he had no research goal, so he had never been very interested in magic. Several people said this while watching a press conference on TV where Rhodes was the spokesperson. An F-22 fighter jet crashed during routine flight training. Fortunately, our pilot is safe and sound. At the same time, Obadiah was watching the press conference in his own home. Rod continued on TV. As for the incident in Gumiera, it is not clear who did it or what the motive was, but I can assure you that the government had nothing to do with it. Seeing this, Obadiah's eyes became fierce. Then Obadiah brought his bodyguards to the Middle East and found the terrorist leader, the bald man. The bald man showed Obadiah all the parts of the Mark I that he had recovered. That was the unexpected bonus that allowed Tony Stark to escape. Obadiah looked at the armor put together by the bald man and sighed. So that's how he escaped. Obadiah walked forward and looked at the armor carefully until he reached the front of the armor. He saw a circular gap on the chest of the armor. He knew that this was the location of the arc reactor on Tony's chest. Then Obadiah directly dealt with the bald man and his men, packed up all the armor and blueprints and took them away. On the way back, Obadiah called his men and said, "Set up a new Zone 16 underground in the company. Keep all information confidential. Find the best engineers and build a prototype for me." After handing the information to Ethan and Tony, Li Hung went home first. After all, he had been out for such a long time, and Li Hung needed to go back and have a good rest. So after saying hello, Li Hung went straight back home, but he still endured his fatigue and went downstairs to find the old man. "Grandpa, where is our basement? Why haven't I seen you use it for such a long time?" Li Feng looked at his grandson and said, "Why are you suddenly asking about the basement today?" "Because when I opened a restaurant, things in the basement would get damp and damaged easily, so I never used it much and used it as a storage room instead." As he spoke, the old man took Li Hung to find the door to the basement. After opening it, a smell of dust indeed came over. After obtaining the old man's consent, Li Hung planned to use the basement as his laboratory and conduct some experiments in it. Well, actually, it was not Li Hung who did the experiments, but Li Hung asked Xiao Zuch to do the experiments. But now, Li Hung decided to take a shower and have a sleep first, and then talk about other things. So he closed the door and didn't clean the basement. Back in the bedroom, Li Hung took a quick shower and lay down on the bed to sleep. When he woke up, Li Hung found that it was already dark. After getting up and washing his face, Li Hung came to the basement, ready to clean it first and then make a plan to see how the basement would be divided and what each part would be used for. It took 20 minutes to finally clean the basement. But when Li Hung was about to build a laboratory in the basement, he was stopped by Xiao Zuch. "Master, after my inspection, the basement is not suitable for use as a laboratory. If you really want to do experiments here, you need to fully renovate and remodel the basement, which is a big project." And after hearing Xiao Zuch's suggestion, Li Hung realized that he had thought too simply. So there was no way. Li Hung could only let Xiao Zuch do the scanning and research first, while he went to find a decoration company. However, Li Hung noticed that little Zuch had not finished speaking. "Xiao Zuch, if you have anything else to say, just say it." "Yes, Master. In fact, I think that instead of renovating your basement at home, you should go out and buy a warehouse and renovate it in the warehouse. It won't attract the old man's attention, and you can choose the location and size of the warehouse." Li Hung heard it and said, "Yes, why didn't I think of it? It seems that I was influenced by the rich Tony. His home is an underground studio, which caused me to not change my mind. Just like other superheroes, setting up a secret base outside, it's exciting to think about it. Has that boy ever thought about having his own secret base?" Li Hung did what he said. After saying hello to the old man, he took little Zuch out. He planned to let Xiao Zuch choose a warehouse that suited his taste and buy it directly. After all, by then, it would be little Zuch, not Li Hung, who would be doing research in the warehouse for a long time, so Li Hung let little Zuch make his own decision. After walking around for a while, little Zuch chose a large warehouse near the suburbs. It looked rather shabby from the outside, but this just fits Li Hung's idea, that is, the appearance must be low-key so as not to attract other people's attention. Then Li Hung used his cash power to directly contact the warehouse owner and bought the warehouse. Soon, this warehouse belonged to Li Hung. Entering the warehouse, Li Hung said to little Zuch, "Now that there's no one else around, I can talk to you about what I want you to research." Chapter 33. "Yes, Master, please speak." Li Hung stood in the warehouse and said. I want you to modify and upgrade something, preferably to achieve better results. As he spoke, Li Heng took out the copied Mark II from the system space, placed it in front of Xiao Zuch, and said to him. I hope you can build on this suit, based on the Mark II, with the Autobots as your goal, and work hard to transform it into a transformer. The best result would be to create a transformer that can transform and be completely remotely controlled. After Li Heng finished speaking, he saw that little Zuch fell silent. Of course, I'm not saying that I have to make an exact copy. I know it will be difficult. But New York won't be peaceful in the future, so I need this to at least ensure the safety of my family. After listening to Li Heng's explanation, Xiao Zuch said, Okay master, I understand, I will work hard. Well, I know it's difficult, but don't worry. So the minimum requirement is to be able to control it remotely and, when necessary, to protect your family in simple combat. Of course, it probably won't be used in the short term, so just wait a few years and you'll be able to do it slowly. Li Heng continued to relax the requirements of his idea a little bit, and let Xiao Zuch come step by step. After all, Li Heng's idea required the ability of the fire source. Without the help of the fire source, Li Heng thought it would be acceptable for Xiao Zuch to build a large robot. After all, Li Heng will always be away from home, so he needs a person or thing that Li Heng can completely trust to help him look after his home. After handing the matter over to Xiao Zuch, Li Heng began to study the area division of the warehouse, and Li Heng was still planning to build a large basement. It just so happened that this warehouse was located in the suburbs, so Li Heng cleaned the warehouse, and then together with Xiao Zuch, he called for a wheel and dug out a huge basement. Because he didn't want other people to know the specific situation in the warehouse, Li Heng did not call a construction team. Instead, he relied on himself throughout the process. He used magic to strengthen the space in the warehouse and the walls of the basement, and then simply decorated them, waiting for Xiao Zuch to buy the machines and tools from the internet. After being busy for a long day, Li Heng was very tired, but his heart was still full of excitement. He also had his own secret base, and he used teleportation to enter and exit. In this way, the warehouse outside still looked shabby and generally would not attract the attention of others. Just when Li Heng returned home and was about to rest, Li Heng received a call from Pepper. 2 hours ago, Stark Industries. After consulting the engineers, Obadiah found that his request for the engineers to build a small reactor had failed. Because the engineer said, he is not Tony Stark, he can't make a small reactor in a cave with some junk like Tony did, but he can't do it. Obadiah was very anxious when he heard the engineer say this, but there was nothing he could do. The Mark I armor that was recovered lacked the most important energy source, but the technology of the small reactor was only in Tony's hands, so Obadiah thought of a solution. At the same time, Pepper received a request from Carlson, who wanted to ask Pepper something about Tony, and he was already waiting downstairs in Stark Company. After thinking for a long time, Pepper decided to meet Carlson, who claimed to be an agent. Pepper planned to tell him everything Obadiah had done, including secretly selling weapons, cooperating with terrorists to kidnap Tony, etc., and asked him to arrest Obadiah. So the two of them made an appointment to meet at Stark Company. After the meeting, Pepper told Carlson everything she knew without waiting for Carlson to ask any questions, ready to see what he would do. Carlson smiled and said, Okay, Ms. Pertz, I already know what you said. Please wait for me to report to the leader and get approval before taking any further action. Pepper held out her hand, indicating yes. Then Carlson stood up, went to the corner, and reported the matter to Nick Fury. Sir, I think this is a good opportunity to get close to Tony and gain his trust. After Carlson reported, he expressed his thoughts. Nick Fury thought about it and agreed to Carlson's request. So Carlson called a few agents and prepared to go with Pepper to find Obadiah and arrest him. While they were talking, Obadiah quietly came to Tony's villa. Tony just came up from the basement and looked around, but didn't see Pepper. Just at this moment, Tony's phone rang, indicating that Pepper was calling. Just as Tony was about to answer the call, suddenly, Tony was completely unable to move, but he was still conscious. Tony? Hello. Pepper called Tony on the phone, but Tony could no longer answer her. Because a hand stretched out from behind Tony's head, holding a device that was used to subdue the terrorist leader, the bald man. It was Obadiah. He helped Tony to slowly put the immobile Tony on the sofa, saying, Breathe, relax, relax. At this time, veins popped up on Tony's face and blood appeared in his eyes. Then Obadiah held up the device in his hand and showed it to Tony. Remember this? It wasn't approved by the government at the time, but it can cause short-term paralysis in people. Sometimes it's really useful. As he spoke, Obadiah walked from behind the sofa to in front of Tony, held Tony's chin with his hand, and turned his face around. When I gave the order to have them get rid of you, I actually had my concerns. As he spoke, Obadiah picked up the mechanical claw from the side and pointed it at Tony's chest. You are the goose that lays the golden eggs, but you see, fate let you escape. As Obadiah pressed down, the mechanical claw grabbed the reactor on Tony's chest. Then Obadiah took the reactor out and pulled it off with a little force. Tony's face suddenly became uglier. This is your last golden egg. Do you really think that the ideas you come up with are yours? Your father helped me build the atomic bomb. If he was as selfish as you, what would the world be like? After showing the reactor to Tony, Obadiah put it into the box he brought. Tony, great masterpiece, take a look, this is your final legacy. Now we can say it is the core of a new generation of weapons. With it, we can firmly grasp the whole world in our hands. I want you to see my prototype, it is not as stingy as yours. At this time, Tony's ears had already started bleeding. Then Obadiah put Tony on the sofa and left with the box. Chapter 34. Li Hung answered Pepper's call. Hey, Pepper, what's up? While Pepper and Carlson were looking for Obadiah at Stark Corporation, they told Li Hung. Li, you finally got through. I just called Tony, but he didn't answer me. Then I was worried that something might have happened to Tony. After all, he answered the phone, but there was no sound, and then he hung up. Oh. Hearing this, Li Hung remembered that Tony must have been killed by Obadiah. Sure enough, Pepper said immediately afterwards. We all know that Obadiah wanted to take action against Tony. I didn't find any trace of him in the company, so I'm worried that he went to find Tony. Can you go and see how Tony is doing now? Okay, no problem. I'll be right there. Li Hung said that he would go to check on Tony's condition right away and told Pepper not to worry. After hanging up the phone, Li Hung was directly teleported to Tony's villa. Not seeing Tony in the living room, Li Hung knew that Tony must have crawled to the basement. Sure enough, Tony, who was almost exhausted, was seen next to the work table in the basement. Hey, Tony! Li Hung shouted, then came to the table, took out the old reactor and reinstalled it on Tony's chest. Hoo-hoo! Tony took a deep breath, and his pale face finally recovered a little. Oh, Li, thank you for saving me again. Li Hung said from the side, you should not only thank me, but also thank Pepper. If she hadn't kept your old reactor, you would be in danger now. Hearing Li Hung talking about Pepper, Tony quickly asked, oh, where is Pepper? Oh, she went with 5 agents to catch Obadiah. 5 people are not enough. Tony stood up and prepared to put on his battlesuit. Just at this moment, Ethan came back with the bags of things he bought from outside. It turned out that Ethan wanted to go out for a walk tonight, which was a rare occasion, so that was why there was no one else in the villa tonight. Seeing Tony's appearance, Ethan asked Li Hung, Li, what's wrong with Tony? Li Hung briefly told Ethan what happened. After listening, Ethan was very upset because he felt that it was his fault that Tony had problems tonight. Ethan, don't be like this. These are actually what Obadiah did. He should be held responsible. Li Hung was comforting Ethan here, while Tony, who had already put on his battle suit, couldn't wait any longer and flew directly to the company without saying hello. As soon as Li Hung saw Tony's expression, he knew that he was too worried about Pepper's safety, so he asked Ethan. It looks like Tony is going to seek revenge on Obadiah. Ethan, do you want to go with him? Speaking of which, Obadiah is the culprit who plunged your hometown into chaos. Hearing what Li Hung said, Ethan was obviously moved and wanted to go and take a look too. So Li Hung brought Ethan to Stark Company. At this time, Obadiah came to his ironmonger with the reactor and installed the reactor he got from Tony. Just at this time, Pepper and Carlson brought the agents to finally find Obadiah and blew open the first door blocking their way. Obadiah heard the bomb and put on his iron overlord. As they got closer, Pepper and Carlson became more cautious until they saw the mark the first made by Tony. Carlson, it seems you were right, he was making armor. And it's bigger, Pepper continued. Then Pepper saw some dangling hanging chains, and just as she was wondering, a pair of eyes lit up behind the chains. They belonged to Ironmonger. Obadiah, piloting the ironmonger, has already targeted Pepper and is ready to take action. Pepper reacted and ran away, Iron Man chasing after her. He killed the two agents, one with his left hand and one with his right hand. Fortunately, Pepper reacted quickly and escaped from the door, but Ironmonger was blocked inside because of his huge body. At the same time, Tony was on his way. Jarvis, how long can Mark I's heart last? Sir, its energy level is less than 48%. And this heart is not suitable for long-distance flights. Tony just asked Jarvis to report the specific energy at any time, and then left it alone. On the way to the company, Tony also called Pepper. On the phone, Pepper told Tony everything she had just seen and said that Obadiah was crazy now. Before Pepper could finish her words, Ironmonger had dug a hole in the ground behind him, crawled out, and said to Pepper, "Where do you want to run to?" Ironmonger approached Pepper step by step, and Pepper stepped back step by step. Just as it was about to attack Pepper, a space gate opened behind Pepper, teleporting Pepper away just before she was attacked. "No!" Obadiah roared unwillingly as he watched Pepper disappear before his eyes. Just at this time, Tony arrived here, so Ironmonger turned around and faced Tony. On the other side, Pepper had already closed her eyes, ready to die, but after waiting for a while, she still didn't feel the attack coming. "Okay Pepper, you're safe now." Li Heng's voice sounded from the side. Pepper opened her eyes and saw that she appeared on the street in the distance, about 100 meters away from Ironmonger. "Oh! Li, did you save me?" Pepper was very excited after escaping death, and then the next moment, she thought of Obadiah who was driving the Ironmonger. "Hurry, Li, Obadiah has gone crazy, help." Li Heng smiled and looked towards Iron Overlord. "It's okay, look who's here." Pepper and Ethan looked over when they heard the sound, and saw a bright light flying over from the sky. It turned out that Tony had arrived. When arriving at the scene, Tony directly asked Jarvis to start looking for Pepper. "Jarvis, find out where Pepper is?" She suddenly went silent on the phone. "Sir, we have found it. Miss Pepper is watching from a distance with Mr. Li and Mr. Ethan." As Jarvis spoke, he zoomed in on the surveillance footage. In the screen, Li Heng and the other two were standing far away, and Tony immediately felt relieved. Then Tony hit Ironmonger, knocking him away, and started fighting with Obadiah. Ethan spoke up at this time, "Li, aren't you going to help Tony?" Li Heng said, "It's okay. Tony should be able to hold on for a while. It's a good time for him to calm down. When he can't hold on anymore, I can help him later." After hearing what Li Heng said, Pepper and Ethan could only watch the battle between Tony and Obadiah for the time being. Chapter 35. Tony knocked Ironmonger directly onto the road next to him, blocking the flow of traffic and causing the vehicles behind to brake suddenly and stop. Then a mother driving a car full of children suddenly braked and stopped the car in front of the Iron Man. Obadiah turned around in the Ironmonger and lifted them up with the car and the people. "I like this suit." Seeing this, Tony said directly, "Put them down." But seeing that Obadiah didn't listen at all and was walking towards him step by step with the car in his hand, Tony said to Jarvis, "Jarvis, turn it up to full power." Then the suit began to light up from the abdomen to the chest, and a laser cannon was fired from the chest, knocking Ironmonger away. Then Tony caught the vehicle thrown by Obadiah. At this time, Jarvis reminded, "Sir, there is only 19% energy left." Just as Tony was trying to control the car and put it on the ground, the mother sitting in the driver's seat stepped on the accelerator out of fright. Just as Tony put the car on the ground, the vehicle pushed Tony and ran wildly on the road. Tony was pushed by the vehicle and ran for a long distance. When Tony couldn't hold on any longer, the car ran over him and then it drove away. Tony had just come out from under the car and hadn't stood up yet when Obadiah drove Ironmonger towards him. After intercepting a boiler motorcycle, Ironmonger swung the motorcycle at Tony, and Tony was knocked flying and crashed into a car parked nearby. The car's glass was shattered and the door was dented by the side impact. Tony was unable to stand up for a while. He was simply beaten by Obadiah and could not fight back at all. While beating Tony, Obadiah spoke his inner thoughts, saying that he didn't want anyone to stop him from doing what he wanted to do. Then when he had enough of beating Tony, he threw him directly onto a bus nearby. Boom! Tony crashed into the bus, and then Obadiah fired a missile from Ironmonger's shoulder at Tony, trying to end the battle directly. At this moment, Pepper, who had already been unable to bear to see Tony continue to be beaten unilaterally, was ready to let Li Heng help Tony. But before Pepper could tell Li Heng, she heard Ethan's exclamation again. Oh, he's going to launch a missile. What? Pepper turned her head in surprise, just in time to see the missile coming out of Ironmonger's shoulder and aiming at Tony. Pepper quickly said. Li, hurry. Save Tony. Li Heng knew that Ironmonger's missile would actually cause less damage to Tony than his punch just now, but since Pepper and Ethan were very worried about Tony's safety, Li Heng also felt that Tony's old reactor had little energy left. Unless he continued to blow up the large reactor as before, Tony would lose. So at the moment when Iron Overlord's missile was launched, Li Heng took action. He opened a not-so-big space gate directly on the missile's flight path and teleported the missile several hundred meters underground. Given the current level of chaos here, Li Heng felt that no one would notice the missile exploding underground. Obadiah watched the missile disappear from his sight and looked around. At this time, Li Heng teleported directly to the place where he and Tony were fighting, and appeared next to the bus, ready to take care of Pepper and Ethan's concerns first. Because at the last second before Li Heng teleported, Pepper blurted out, "Save Tony first." So Li Heng prepared to get Tony out of the bus first. Li Heng looked into the depression of the bus and saw Tony. He was lying in the depression, motionless. Li Heng guessed that he must have been hit too hard, and the energy was not sufficient, so he was temporarily unconscious. So Li Heng directly pulled him out of the bus. It was simple and direct. Anyway, Tony had the Iron Man suit and was not afraid of secondary injuries. Just as Li Heng was pulling Tony, Obadiah looked at the young man who appeared in front of him. He was not wearing any protection, and just like the disappearance of the missile, he appeared at the scene abruptly. Originally, Obadiah was going to tell him not to get involved in this matter, but after seeing Li Heng appear, he kept his back to him, as if he didn't take him seriously at all, which made Obadiah furious. He couldn't bear it any longer and fired another missile at Li Heng. Pepper and Ethan, who were far away, saw Obadiah's actions and Li Heng who was saving Tony with his back to Ironmonger, and they screamed in fright. What? But the next moment, the second missile also disappeared, and Li Heng finally pulled Tony out of the car. After seeing that Tony was awake, he turned around and said to Obadiah. Originally I just came here to save Tony, but you attacked me from behind, and I couldn't stand it. Then Li Heng said to Tony. Tony, you should take a rest first. Wait for me for 2 minutes and I will take care of him. When Tony heard what Li Heng said, he hesitated to speak. He wanted to tell Li Heng that Iron Overlord had been upgraded by Obadiah and was not so easy to deal with. But before Tony could say anything, he saw Li Heng waving his hand, and he knew that Li Heng was going to activate the power of space. Sure enough, the next moment after Li Heng waved his hand, 4 small space doors appeared directly at the connection between Iron Overlord's limbs and body, just enough to fit Iron Overlord's limbs inside. Then the space gate closed, and Ironmonger was cut down to only his body and head. Because Ironmonger's body was big enough, Obadiah escaped and was not hurt by the space gate. Then, Li Heng came to Ironmonger again and took off Obadiah's helmet, so that he no longer had the means to control Ironmonger. After doing all this, Li Heng came to Tony and said to the stunned Tony. What's wrong with you? Are you stupid? As he said this, he slowly moved his hands in front of Tony a few times to make sure that Tony did not become a blind man. Tony came back to his senses and said, Oh, I just didn't expect that you, Tony didn't know what to say, so Li Heng continued. Didn't expect what would happen to me. I didn't expect you to take down Obadiah so quickly, so I was a little surprised. It was rare to hear such words from Tony. Li Heng raised his eyebrows and continued. Oh, I rarely hear you say so confidently that you are not as good as me. Tony saw Li Heng's smirk and immediately became furious. Okay, you know, that's not what I meant. Li Heng was about to continue asking him what that meant, but when Pepper and Ethan saw that Li Heng had already dealt with Ironmonger, they ran over here. Pepper rushed directly to Tony and hugged him. Oh my god! I thought you... Tony patted Pepper on the back with one hand and said, Okay, I'm fine. It's all over. At this time, Ethan asked, So what are you going to do with Obadiah? But Ethan could not forget that Obadiah was the culprit who caused the chaos in his hometown. Hearing Ethan's question, Pepper also raised her head and looked at Tony. Just when Tony was hesitating, Li Heng knew that Tony would most likely bring Obadiah to court and use the law to punish him. But if this is done, it won't be long before Obadiah can return to society. Chapter 36. But Li Heng has already been involved in this matter, and Li Heng and his family are likely to become the target of Obadiah's revenge. So Li Heng and Ethan had the same idea, which was not to let Obadiah go to court alive. So when Tony was still hesitating, Li Heng pulled Ethan and said to Tony, "Hey, Tony, this place has attracted most people's attention. Ethan and I will go back first. When you are done with this place, come back to find us." Upon hearing this, Tony asked Li Heng to take Ethan and Pepper back with him. But Pepper refused to let Tony stay here alone, so Tony had no choice but to let Pepper stay with him. Then Li Heng opened the space gate and took Ethan through the space gate and left. Ethan walked through the space gate first. When he passed through and looked back, he happened to see Li Heng holding the magic wand. "Li, what did you do?" Ethan asked in surprise. "Oh, it's nothing actually, just a small matter," Li Heng answered casually without saying too much to Ethan. Then the two of them sat down. After this thrilling night, Ethan was very tired, and although Obadiah was defeated, he was not killed directly. With Ethan's understanding of American society, he knew it wouldn't be long before he saw Obadiah coming out, so it was hard for Ethan to accept seeing his enemy continuing to live happily after a while. So this time, Ethan took the initiative to find a bottle of wine and started drinking. When Li Heng saw Ethan's expression, he knew that he must be worried about Obadiah, but Li Heng didn't want to tell others what he had done, so he could only wait until Ethan watched the news himself to find out what happened to Obadiah. Li Heng took Ethan away, leaving Tony standing there with his arms around Pepper. Now, with Li Heng's help, Obadiah and Ironmonger were subdued quickly and easily. Tony no longer had to suffer the same fate as before, where his Iron Man suit was almost destroyed by Obadiah. The company's large reactor did not explode, reducing a lot of losses. At the same time, Pepper and Tony were not in any danger and were able to stay and clean up the mess. Tony and Pepper came to Obadiah's side and asked Jarvis to scan him, preparing to completely pull him out of Ironmonger. But then Jarvis suddenly said, "Sir, after scanning, it was found that Obadiah is no longer breathing." Tony was surprised. "What do you mean?" "That is to say, Obadiah is now dead." "What? No way." When Lee was about to finish, I could see Obadiah shouting and yelling that he was unwilling to give up. How could he die so quietly? Tony really couldn't figure out what caused Obadiah's death. Jarvis went on to say, "It is speculated that the cause of his death was a heart condition." Tony was thoughtful, but facing Obadiah who died of heart problems, he had no evidence to support his idea. Just as Tony was thinking, many bureaus came over, including the Shield led by Coulson. Coulson showed his credentials and kept the other departments out. Then he brought the agents with him to help Tony clean up the scene and sort out the mess. After everything was cleaned up, Tony brought Pepper back to the villa. After entering the villa, Tony saw Li Heng and Ethan drinking. He spoke directly to them. After examination, it was found that Obadiah had a heart problem and had died. Ethan was so excited when he heard Tony say this that even the wine in his hand lost its appeal. He looked up at Tony and said, "Tony, are you telling the truth?" Tony walked over to the two people, poured himself a glass of wine, sat down and took a sip. "Of course it's true. The body has been taken away by that department with a long and ugly name." Although Tony answered Ethan's words, his eyes were on Li Heng. He wanted to see Li Heng's reaction. But what disappointed Tony was that since he came in and talked about Obadiah's death, Li Heng's reaction was relatively normal and nothing could be seen. Li Heng knew that Tony had been observing him, but because he was mentally prepared, he acted as if he was hearing the news of Obadiah's death for the first time. Unable to tell anything from Li Heng's face, Tony stopped observing him. After all, a dead Obadiah would bring more benefits to Tony than a living one, so Tony didn't plan to delve into the matter any further. And even if he wanted to dig deeper, Tony had no evidence, and it would hurt the relationship between Tony, Li Heng, and Ethan. Unexpectedly, when Ethan learned of Obadiah's death, he was already happily holding a whole bottle of wine and blowing it directly into his mouth. Pepper couldn't bear it anymore and stepped forward to stop Ethan from going crazy and hurting himself. At the same time, Pepper asked, "Tony, and Lee, I have called the family doctor, who will be at the villa soon. Ask her to examine you carefully to avoid any hidden injuries in your body." When Tony heard what was said beside him, he wanted to say, "There is no need for a doctor. He has already asked Jarvis to do a body scan and there is nothing serious. It is just some superficial injuries." It looks like there are many wounds, but it is not a big problem. As for Li Heng, looking at the way he attacked Obadiah, you can tell that he was definitely not injured. But when Tony was about to speak, he saw the scary look next to him, so he silently swallowed what he wanted to say and continued to drink with his head down, not intending to offend Pepper at this time. Seeing Tony's look, Pepper stood aside and nodded, as if she was very satisfied with Tony's reaction. Li Heng and Ethan, who were watching the two people nearby, saw Tony's reaction and couldn't help but laugh. After a few minutes, the doorbell of the villa rang, and Jarvis said, "Miss Pepper, the family doctor has arrived at the door of the villa. I have opened the door and let her in." "Oh. Okay," Pepper said as she went to get the doctor in. "Hi, Selena." The doctor who came shook hands with Pepper and then followed Pepper into the living room. When she walked into the living room, she saw several people drinking. Pepper quickly walked forward, snatched the wine glass from Tony's hand, put it aside, then pulled Tony to sit on the sofa, and asked Selena to check Tony after he was healed. After a series of checks, Selena said to Pepper and Tony, who looked worried, "Don't worry, Pepper. Tony only has some skin injuries. I'll disinfect and bandage him in a moment. It's no big deal." Tony immediately showed an expression that said, "See, I told you nothing happened," but was immediately forced back by Pepper's eyes. Then after Selena finished bandaging Tony, Pepper wanted Selena to show it to Li Heng as well. Li Heng wanted to refuse, but Tony said, "I don't want to be the only one to suffer." "Oh, yes, of course we have to show it to Li. He also took action today, and he might be injured." Sure enough, after hearing what Tony said, Pepper ignored Li Heng's explanation and asked Selena to show Li Heng as well. Then Pepper looked at Ethan, but then she thought that Ethan didn't seem to be involved in the battle today, so she let it go. Only after examining Tony and Li Heng and finding that there were no serious problems did Pepper send the doctor away from the villa. At this time, Li Heng waited until Pepper came back, stood up, said goodbye to them, and went home to sleep. Chapter 37. Li Heng returned home, cleaned the warehouse and fought with Iron Overlord. Although Li Heng defeated Obadiah in a few moves, it was already very late when he returned home. So Li Heng just lay down on the bed and went to sleep without doing anything else. Early the next morning, when Li Heng woke up, the first thing he did was to find Xiao Zuj. Because yesterday, when fighting with Iron Overlord, Li Heng took out his mobile phone to record the video and asked Little Zuj to analyze and learn from Iron Overlord's design through the mobile phone video to enrich the Transformers project. That's right, the task that Li Heng assigned to Xiao Zuj was to make an unmanned, remotely controlled large-scale mecha, and named it the Transformers project. Moreover, when Li Heng is outside, he will pay attention to collecting some different armors, battle armors, etc. from the Marvel world and give them to Xiao Zuj to help him perfect the Transformers. Little Zuj, how is it going? Did you analyze the detailed information of Iron Overlord last night? Li Heng asked as he looked at the busy Little Zuj. At this time, Xiao Zuj heard Li Heng's voice and turned his head to look at Li Heng and said, "Oh, Master, I have carefully analyzed the video you brought back." "Oh? What's the result?" Little Zuj hesitated for a moment before saying, "Well, I didn't get much useful information from the video analysis." Hearing what Xiao Zuj said, Li Heng thought, then I recorded the video for such a long time in vain, and it turned out to be useless. Just as Li Heng was considering whether to go and find out where Obadiah hid the information about Iron Overlord, Xiao Zuj continued. "But you don't have to worry, Master. When the video was no longer useful last night, I had already started looking up all the information about Obadiah. In the end, I found that he most likely put the information in Area 16 that he personally set up." Li Heng heard that Xiao Zuj had the same idea as himself. When he learned that the video was useless, the first thing he did was to look for the original information hidden by Obadiah. So he looked at Xiao Zuj, wanting to know what else he had done. "After I found the place where he stored the information, I asked Zhuanlun to go out and make a copy of the information before many people thought of it and brought it back." Hearing this, Li Heng laughed happily. He didn't expect that Little Zuj had become more flexible in doing things and more comprehensive in considering issues. This made Li Heng very pleased. He felt that Little Zuj must have been influenced by him because he had been with him for a long time. Seeing that Li Heng was lost in some kind of fantasy again, Little Zuj turned around and continued to busy himself with his work. Combine Tony's Iron Man suit and Obadiah's Ironmonger, select the parts that better suit Li Heng's requirements, and then combine them together to learn from the best of both worlds. When Li Heng woke up from his imagination, he saw that Xiao Zhuzh was still busy, so he stopped disturbing him and returned to his room upstairs in the restaurant. Even before leaving, he told Xiao Zhuzh, "You don't have to be so busy, take your time. According to the time, it should be about 4 years before it can be used." Back in the room, the news was playing on TV. Rod stood on the podium. "Everyone has received the official statement from Stark Industries last night. According to unconfirmed reports, a prototype robot malfunctioned, causing it to fire randomly at the wrong target. Fortunately." After seeing this, Li Heng stopped paying attention to what was said in the news, but opened his mobile phone to see what everyone was saying on the short video. "As soon as I opened the short video, 9 out of 10 videos were talking about the battle last night, and I didn't know where the surveillance video of the battle was found, which included the scene of Tony's battlesuit fighting with Ironmonger. And some people are speculating. Oh my god! Is this a new weapon that Stark Group is going to use to control the world? I think this should be Tony's latest invention. Isn't anyone curious whether there is someone inside that humanoid mecha? I think the name Iron Man sounds good. No, I think calling it Iron Man is more direct." Many onlookers were talking about it. At the same time, Tony, who was waiting for the press conference to start, was sitting backstage with nothing to do, so he called Li Heng and asked him to come over to watch Tony's press conference. After receiving Tony's call, Li Heng came to the villa and brought Ethan with him. When seeing Tony, Li Heng said, "Hey, isn't this our famous Iron Man? What do you think of this title that everyone gave you?" Li Heng moved closer to Tony and used his hand as a microphone to ask Tony questions. "What? What title?" Tony didn't know what happened in the short video. So Li Heng told him the comments on the short video. So Tony also opened the short video app for a rare time, watched his own videos on it, and opened the comment section to see what everyone was saying. When seeing someone calling him Iron Man or Iron Man, Tony complained to Pepper. Pepper, you see, their name for me isn't quite accurate. In fact, the Iron Man suit is made of gold titanium alloy, but who knew people would associate it like this?" Just as Tony was complaining, Carlson came over with a few speeches and handed them to Tony. "This is the alibi we prepared for you." Tony looked at it, then took it. "Okay." Carlson went on to explain. "You were on the yacht at the time, as evidenced by the Port Authority, and you were anchored in Avalon Harbor overnight, as well as the testimony of 50 guests. It seems that S.H.I.E.L.D. has already prepared an excuse for Tony, and has also thoughtfully prepared a statement with complete evidence for Tony." But Tony looked at the note in his hand, frowned and said, "Actually, I think it's better to say that it was just Pepper and I on the island that night." After speaking, Tony looked up at Pepper, wanting to get her consent. But Pepper, who was putting makeup on Tony, had a speechless expression and didn't want to pay attention to Tony. Carlson said at the side, "We can't cheat, just read it as it is." "Okay." Tony made himself look unhappy and flipped through the note in his hand. No mention of Obadiah. "Oh, we took care of it. He went on vacation. You know the safety of small airplanes. It's really poor." Then Tony continued to ask, "But how are you going to explain something that was made up out of thin air? This is not the first time I've done something like this. As long as you follow the official statement, everything will be fine." Speaking of this topic, Li Heng could see that Carlson became more confident. Then Carlson glanced at Rhodes, who was speaking on TV, and said, "You only have 90 seconds. After saying that, he nodded to Li Heng and Ethan, pretending that he knew Li Heng and Ethan for the first time, and turned around to leave. At this moment, someone caught up with him and said to Carlson at the door, "I want to express my deep gratitude for all the help you have provided." Carlson smiled and said, "This is my duty. We will cooperate again in the future." Ethan said to Tony, "Tony, I think what this person said makes sense. As long as you do what they say, nothing will happen." Ethan looked at Tony, wanting him not to change the contents of the note casually. Chapter 38. At this time, Li Heng stood aside and didn't say anything, but he caught Tony's attention. "Hey, Li, why don't you say anything and express your, opinion? What do you want me to do? But it doesn't seem difficult to fake it, although I don't believe I am Iron Man. Li Heng knew what Tony did in the end, so he didn't say much, just said, "No, Tony, you're Iron Man." By this time, Pepper had said goodbye to Coulson and turned to look at Tony. Now it's your turn. As he said this, he picked up Tony's suit jacket and was about to put it on him. As Tony put on his clothes, he said to Pepper. If I really am Iron Man, and I have a girlfriend like you who knows my true identity, she will definitely worry about me dying. But she will also be proud of me. She will be very conflicted, and then she will be very fond of me. Then he waited for a moment, and while Pepper was straightening his suit, Tony continued. You must think about that night all the time. When Pepper heard Tony mention that night, she said angrily. Is it the night we danced together? After we danced, we came to the balcony and I asked you to go down and get me something to drink, but you just left me there alone. Is that the night you are talking about? After saying that, Pepper stared at Tony, leaving Tony at a loss as to what to say. Fortunately, after waiting for a while, Pepper continued. It was not until I ran into Lee later that he told me that you had left for something. Only then did I realize that you left without even saying goodbye. Hearing this, Tony turned around and looked at Li Heng, nodded to him, and expressed his gratitude for Li Heng's explanation for him at that time. Li Heng mouthed, You owe me again. Tony had no choice but to agree. Pepper said, Okay, are you done? Tony turned back to look at Pepper. Yes, I'm done, Miss Pertz. Then he pushed the door and went to the press conference. Rhodes just said at this time, Mr. Stark has prepared a statement, but he will not answer any questions. Thank you. After saying that, Rhodes gave his seat to Tony. Standing at the podium, Tony said. I haven't been in public for a while, so just read from the script. Then he took out the manuscript that Coulson had sorted out. Some people speculate that I was personally involved in the events that took place last night. Before he could finish his sentence, the blonde reporter sitting in the first row raised her hand. I'm sorry, Mr. Stalker, do you really think we would easily believe that it was a bodyguard wearing armor just right, when in fact you usually... As a result, the reporter was interrupted by Tony before he could finish his words and took back the initiative. I know what you mean. It's fine to question official statements, but you can't make assumptions and call me a superhero for no reason. The reporter then said, I didn't say you were a superhero. Her words stunned Tony. Pepper and Ethan in the lounge also became nervous, afraid that Tony would not know what to say. But Li Heng was not worried, he knew the climax was coming. Tony was stunned for a moment, then said, No, that's good. If that were the case, it would be too ridiculous and outrageous. However, Tony's voice became smaller and smaller, and he became less and less confident, which made the reporter discover something and show an interesting expression. Tony continued, but his voice began to stutter. I am not cut out to be a hero. It's obvious that I have too many character flaws and have done too many bad things. I have a very bad influence. While Tony was talking about these irrelevant topics, Pepper and Ethan noticed something was wrong, and Rhodes, who was standing next to Tony, quickly leaned over to Tony's ear to remind him. Read from the script, Tony. After being reminded by Rhodes, Tony replied, Okay. Li Heng also knew what Tony was going to say next, so he put the chair behind Pepper in advance just in case. Sure enough, Tony said. In fact, I am Iron Man. As soon as he finished speaking, the reporters stood up and frantically took photos and asked questions. Are you serious? You said you're Iron Man. Mr. Stark, why do you admit it now? How did you create that armor? Who's that big guy you're fighting? Mr. Stark, please answer our questions. At this time, Pepper in the lounge was stunned when she saw Tony admit it, and then sat down on the chair that Li Heng placed behind her. Then he said to Li Heng. Tony admitted it. Li Heng said, Well, I saw it, but since he has admitted it, you have to be prepared to guide public opinion. Do you need my help? Pepper thought about it and realized that he still needed Li Heng's help to guide public opinion through the short video. Then please. Li Heng nodded. This is Tony coming back. Pepper saw Tony rushing to him and yelled. Tony, why didn't you say what was written in your speech? You even admitted it directly during the live broadcast of the press conference, which left us no way to hide it. Tony hugged Pepper and comforted her and said. Okay, calm down. In fact, even if I admit it, what will happen? Tony's question stumped Pepper, who didn't know how to answer. Tony took the opportunity to continue, Look, you don't know either, which means that even if I admit it, nothing will happen. Don't worry. Then Tony saw Li Heng and tried to change the subject. But, Li, why is there no video about you on the internet? You obviously participated in the battle. Li Heng didn't expect that Tony would suddenly turn around and ask him. So he spread his hands indifferently. Didn't I tell you that I actually have a friend who does this? Plus, I still have to keep a low profile for the time being, so I asked my friend to clear the surveillance video. What? Tony asked in surprise after hearing what Li Heng said. Why don't you just delete my video as well? Li Heng couldn't tell Tony directly. If I deleted all the videos directly, firstly, no one would believe that all the surveillance cameras happened to be broken. Secondly, if everyone doesn't name you Iron Man and you don't admit it, then how will the Marvel world open? All Li Heng did was smile and didn't answer him. Seeing Li Heng's expression, Tony stopped asking questions and clapped his hands, saying, "Everyone, to celebrate my official becoming a superhero today, Iron Man, I propose that we all go out for a meal together. It's my treat." Then Tony took a few people to the 3-star Michelin restaurant, had a good meal with everyone, and drank a lot of wine. At the same time, the video in which Tony admitted that he was Iron Man was being forwarded crazily on the short video platform. This was even after Li Heng had already told Lin Yi to do something to reduce the popularity. Chapter 39. Although Li Heng had asked Lin Yi to reduce the popularity of Tony's video through technical means, facing so many people, it was the first time they saw someone acknowledge that he was a superhero, so the individual worship in their hearts was completely aroused. Now, not only New York, but the entire United States and even the world began to pay attention to Tony's every word and action, which directly led to a surge in the number of short video users during this period. Lin Yi spent a lot of money and rented more servers, which were able to barely handle such a large amount of traffic and allow them to watch videos without any lag. After doing all this, Lin Yi finally breathed a sigh of relief. He finally had time to sit in a chair and drink some water, and then told Li Heng about this matter. At this time, Li Heng was following Tony to a 3-star Michelin restaurant to prepare for dinner. Halfway through the journey, he received a call from Lin Yi. He learned what had happened from the phone. Li Heng praised Lin Yi for a while, saying that he was not wrong about him and that Lin Yi did a very good job. Li Heng originally wanted to invite Lin Yi to dinner, but then he thought, since Tony was the one treating, it would not be appropriate for him to invite other people to be the main guest, so he just said to Lin Yi, "Wait for me to come back, and I'll treat you and me to a drink." "It's settled then. I'm waiting for it," Lin Yi said. When they arrived at the Michelin restaurant, Tony walked straight in with a few people, then called a waiter and asked him to take everyone to the reserved table. It was then that everyone realized that Tony had asked Jarvis to reserve a seat for him when he was about to leave. "There are so many people eating at this restaurant that you usually need to make a reservation a week in advance, so I made an appointment in advance to avoid finding that there are no empty seats when we arrive." After hearing what Tony said, Ethan was a little confused. "Tony, didn't you say you wanted to make an appointment a week in advance? How come you were able to make an appointment right away? And so quickly?" Poke. Well, Li Heng admitted that he would not laugh unless he could not help himself. Unless something was really funny, Li Heng would laugh out loud. But now Ethan's words made Li Heng unable to help himself and laughed out loud. Ethan's question really sounded too much like a mockery of Tony. Sure enough, Tony didn't know whether to answer Ethan's question. It was not until several people sat down at the table that Tony said, "Because I am a big customer here and I come here often, I can ask them to reserve a seat for me for a long time. I just need to tell them before I come." Tony stared at Ethan as he explained. Li Heng guessed that if Ethan hadn't been his savior, Tony would have probably punched Ethan in the face. Ethan seemed to finally realize from Tony's reaction that he must have said something wrong, but he didn't know what exactly he said wrong, so he was a little confused. Just then Pepper had to go to the bathroom, so she stood up and left. At this time, Li Heng continued. "Well, this way Ethan and I can find out why you're so fast." When Li Heng emphasized his tone once more, Ethan finally understood the reason and hurriedly explained. "Oh, Tony, you know, I didn't mean you were fast. Oh, no, I meant you weren't fast. That's not right either." Ethan hurried to explain, but the more anxious he became, the more incoherent his words became. Just when Li Heng saw that Tony was so angry that he was helpless and even speechless, he quickly said, Okay, Ethan, you don't have to explain. We all know what you mean. Tony, don't be angry. Order the food quickly. I'm so hungry that I can't wait. Just at this time, Pepper came back, so the three of them tacitly changed the topic and prepared to order food. Soon, the dishes and wine that everyone ordered were served one by one. At this time, Tony raised his glass and said, I think you all know the reason why I treat you to dinner. It's to celebrate Iron Man, which is the day when I officially become a superhero. Everyone must drink a lot today. Well, I won't leave until I've had enough anyway. As he was speaking, Tony's last words became very quiet. Li Heng felt that he was the only one who heard it. Li Heng did not expect that Tony liked drinking so much. It seemed that he did not see it in the movie. However, Tony's reaction also made Li Heng feel that he was more real, rather than just a character in the movie, and changed Li Heng's perception of Tony. Just as Pepper began to ask Tony what his last sentence was, and Tony was trying to evade the question, Li Heng raised his glass and said, Then let's have a drink together. Ethan and Pepper also raised their glasses and clinked them with Tony. After drinking, Li Heng started to eat actively because he was really hungry. In his previous life, Li Heng had never had the chance to dine at a 3-star Michelin restaurant. Now that he has the chance, he must try it and see how it tastes. 20 minutes later, a strange scene appeared at their table. A young boy was eating his meal with his head down, completely oblivious to what was happening outside. Tony, who was drunk from drinking too much, insisted on talking to Ethan about the good ideas and new technologies he thought of after getting drunk. In fact, most of them were technologies that were difficult to realize in recent years. Ethan, who was pulled to be the audience, was very rigorous. He asked the waiter to bring him a pen and paper and wrote down everything Tony said. The person standing next to him looked at the three people's performance and felt too embarrassed to face anyone. He covered his face with his hands and moved back, just wanting to hide himself from being seen. Originally, the people nearby wanted to send all of them home, but Li Heng said that he had not finished his meal yet. Tony was drunk and acting crazy, and Ethan was taking notes seriously, so there was nothing they could do, so they could only leave them like that. The scene at their table attracted the attention of other people nearby. Some of them knew Tony's identity as Iron Man, so they kept turning their heads to see if there was anything different about Tony. Some of them were because Li Heng ate too much. Compared to the amount of food they ate at 3-star Michelin restaurants, Li Heng was obviously the example of someone who ate a lot. But in fact, Li Heng felt that each dish tasted good, but the portion was too small and he could not feel full at all. So he ate more than 10 or nearly 20 dishes. You know, at Li Heng's age, the old man would always cook 2 bowls of rice for him. How could he be full with just a few dishes of such small portions? Finally, after enduring the time arduously until he began to feel a little numb, Li Heng finally put down his cutlery and wiped his mouth to indicate that he had finished eating. Thank God, Li, you finally finished eating. Come on, let's take Tony and Ethan back. Chapter 40. Pepper let out a long sigh. She really didn't want to stay here any longer, so she urged Li Heng to quickly help her and Tony leave the restaurant. Arriving at the parking lot, Li Heng looked around and found no surveillance. He couldn't help but sigh that it was indeed worthy of being a 3-star Michelin hotel and that they paid great attention to the privacy of their customers. However, this was just convenient for Li Heng. Li Heng opened the space door and appeared in the garage of Tony's villa with several people and cars. Then he and Ethan put Tony on the bed in his room and let him have a good sleep. Pepper said to Li Heng and Ethan, "Oh, thank you, otherwise I don't know what to do with Tony." "It's okay, it's just a piece of cake," Li Heng said, and then he saw Pepper taking him and Ethan to the living room, so he continued. "I won't be here anymore. I'm going home soon, but before I go, I want to tell you something," Li Heng said to Pepper. This made Pepper confused and she didn't know what Li Heng was going to say. "Just before dinner, I received a message that although we used technical means to reduce the popularity of Tony's press conference video, with the increase of more and more new users around the world, more and more people are discussing Tony's affairs. Now there is no way to completely rely on us to control the popularity. What I promised you did not work." After listening to what Li Heng said, Pepper quickly said, "Oh, Li, you don't have to be like this. It's okay. It's not your fault. In fact, just like you said at the time, let others discuss it if they want. It won't affect Tony anyway." Li Heng finally relaxed after hearing what Pepper said. After all, he had promised others something with great confidence but failed to do it. Fortunately, Pepper seemed to have let it go and said that it was nothing. Then Li Heng said goodbye to them and went home. When Li Heng returned home, he remembered that little Zudge was still busy in the warehouse, so he came to the warehouse again. The commander asked him to take a rest, because Li Heng had not seen little Zudge at home in the past 2 days. This made him reflect on himself and whether he had put too much pressure on little Zudge. So Li Heng teleported to the warehouse again. But Li Heng, who walked out of the space gate, found something wrong. Because he could see that the buildings around him began to fall upside down. At this time, just as Li Heng was about to use the power of space, he remembered that the appearance of this scene meant who was coming. But, have you come to see me now? Li Heng wondered in his heart. The next moment, a space gate with yellow sparks flashing around it appeared in front of him, and a man in a yellow robe and a hood walked out from the opposite side. The person who came was the current guardian of the earth, the Ancient One of Kamar-Taj. At the same time, she is also the Sorcerer Supreme and possesses the Eye of Agamotto, which is the Time Stone. Li Heng looked at Guyi cautiously, and was ready to teleport away at any time. He couldn't beat Guyi at all now, so Li Heng was ready for Guyi to cause trouble for him. Li Heng guessed that it was probably because he participated in the battle between Tony and Ironmonger, disrupting the timeline, which attracted the attention of Ancient One and made him come to find him. Seeing Li Heng looking like he was facing a formidable enemy, Guyi said softly. Don't be nervous, Li Heng. I don't regard you as a target and I won't attack you. Li Heng didn't expect that Guyi would speak so softly, and there was no trace of the domineering attitude of the Guardian of the Earth. Hello, respected Supreme Sorcerer, Master Ancient One. Li Heng said hello to Guyi. From your reaction to me and your observations over the past few days, you should know me. Li Heng thought to himself, as expected, he knew that Ancient One would pay attention to Tony's affairs, so if he got involved, he would definitely be observed by Ancient One. Oh, I can tell from your expression that you really know a lot about me. Am I right? Although Guyi used a question, her tone was very affirmative. Li Heng did not answer her, but asked. So, Master Ancient One, why did you come to me? Is it because I got involved in Tony's affairs and disrupted the timeline? When Li Heng finished speaking, Guyi looked at him with strange eyes, as if to say, you are not hiding it anymore, just telling me what you know about me like this. However, Li Heng still did not respond and prepared to pretend that he knew nothing about the question. He would not say anything anyway. Don't worry. With your understanding of me, you must know that I can use the Eye of Agamotto to check on things in the multiverse. When I first noticed you, I used the Eye of Agamotto to check on Li Heng in other universes, that is, you. Hearing what Ancient One said, Li Heng immediately became interested and wanted to know what he was like in other universes, so he listened quietly to what Ancient One had to say. I have observed many universes. In some universes, you are just an ordinary person who does not participate in many things. In some universes, there is no such person as Li Heng. The only special case is here. In this universe, you have gained something and started to participate in some events. When I want to continue to look at your future possibilities, I can only see a little bit, and then your future begins to become blurry and I can't see clearly. After a pause, Guyi continued. So I came here to tell you that you don't have to be too cautious about some things. As long as it doesn't endanger the safety of the Earth, I won't care. Also, I want to see what kind of future you can reach in this universe and what you can change. After listening to Guyi's words, Li Heng finally relaxed and was no longer afraid that Guyi would suddenly attack him. Then Li Heng asked her. So, Master Ancient One, what do you see in my future? Li Heng was also very curious about what the future would be like as seen by Ancient One through the Time Stone, and what he would do in the future. Until now, I can no longer see the future clearly, even though I have the Eye of Agamotto. But since I noticed you, the future has become blurry and erratic. I can't see through it, and I don't know whether it is good or bad. What the future will be like depends entirely on what you do. Li Heng was shocked when he heard Guyi's words. Did he have to write the future? Guyi seemed to see what Li Heng was thinking, so he explained. There is no certainty about what the future will be like. Only when everyone makes a choice together can we move towards a certain future step by step. Your choice can only affect the people related to you. However, after observing you for the past few days, I found that you are not a person with endless ambitions. You will not do anything to destroy the earth, so you don't have to worry that I will stop you. Chapter 41. After hearing Gu Yi's slow explanation, Li Heng finally understood what Gu Yi meant. Is that so? Li Heng thought that everything he did was to have the power to protect himself and prevent his family and friends from being hurt in future events, so Li Heng felt that maybe he really had no ambition and just wanted to live a good life, and his life was just getting better and better. I have said what I want to say. When you are free, you can come to Kamartaj to discuss. I am also very interested in your magic. After Gu Yi finished speaking to Li Heng, he opened a portal with yellow sparks behind him and left. After Gu Yi left, the world around Li Heng was like shattered glass, and then Li Heng appeared in the real world. Sure enough, I entered Ancient One's mirror space without noticing. As Li Heng spoke, he walked towards the warehouse in front of him. Well, it seems that I can be bolder in the future and do whatever I want. But if the earth encounters difficulties, I will also help. After all, my home is on earth. As for the other things, there is no need to worry too much. After saying that, Li Heng pushed open the door of the warehouse and walked in. He first asked about Xiao Zhej's progress, and then ordered him to work only 4 hours a day in the warehouse so that he wouldn't have to work so hard every day. I've already said that the requirements are not that high. It will be fine if there is something to use when the time comes. Okay, master. I'll remember that. Little Zhej was busy there, and he didn't even have time to turn his head to look at Li Heng, and just answered verbally. Looking at the look on Little Zhej's face, Li Heng knew that he would most likely not listen to him. Then Li Heng stayed with Xiao Zhej in the warehouse for an entire afternoon and completely determined the appearance that Li Heng wanted, which was a large robot nearly 10 meters tall. When it was night, Li Heng was about to leave the warehouse, but he remembered that he had said he would go find Lin Yi for a drink, so Li Heng turned around and went back to the company. He hasn't been to the company for several days, so today he went to see how the company is developing. When I arrived at the company, I saw Lin Yi, who was busy all the time. He kept directing employees to maintain the network and ensure the smoothness of watching short videos. He also had to emphasize to content reviewers that video content must not pass the review if it is not true. In short, Lin Yi had no chance to rest at all. After seeing Li Heng coming, Lin Yi's eyes lit up. Hurry up, come and help me. After disappearing for so many days, I finally remembered that you still have a company, Mr. Li. Li Heng laughed dryly twice, but considering that Lin Yi was already busy as a dog with the company's affairs, he did not refute Lin Yi's words, but just hurried to help Lin Yi deal with various things. After being busy for nearly 2 hours, it was finally time to get off work. Li Heng and Lin Yi sat on the chairs at the same time and breathed a sigh of relief, finally being able to take a break. Tell me, why did you want to come to the company today? Lin Yi directly asked Li Heng why he was finally able to come to the company. Li Heng heard dissatisfaction from his tone, but Li Heng agreed. After all, he did not expect the company to be so busy. Okay, I'm here to have a drink with you. It's just like we're off work now, so just let the others watch over us. Let's go out for a drink, let's go. Then Li Heng took Lin Yi to find a nearby drinking shop, and the two of them ate something and drank some wine together. After drinking too much, Li Heng listened to Lin Yi complaining that there were too many things in the company and that all the things fell on him. Li Heng quickly said, okay, I don't have anything to do recently, so I can go to the company to share some of the work. You said this, don't forget it. Li Heng thought about the upcoming events in his mind. There should be another big event happening this year, and the rest will happen in the next few years. Then it will be the Avengers in 2012, but that will be a long time in the future. Thinking of this, Li Heng remembered that it seemed that Nick Fury should have started his Avengers plan from now on. Then according to the time, he should have found Tony. Villa. Tony drank too much at noon and had no idea how he got back. So when he woke up, he found himself sleeping in bed, so he asked Jarvis. Jarvis, how did I get back today? Jarvis, sir, it was Mr. Li who took you back to the villa, and then sent you to your own room according to Miss Pepper's instructions. Tony sat up from the bed and rubbed his head. He was still a little dizzy after drinking too much. He looked at the time again and it was already evening. No wonder I'm hungry. So Tony got up and prepared to find something to eat. Tony slowly came out of the bedroom and found that only 1 or 2 small light bulbs were on, and there was no sign of Pepper and Ethan. Coming out of the elevator, before Tony could ask, he saw a figure standing behind the sofa in the living room in front. The figure was wearing a bright black reflective coat and said, "I'm Iron Man. Do you think you're the only superhero? Mr. Stark, you've become part of the great world, but you don't know it yet." Tony asked in confusion, "Who are you?" The man said as he walked towards Tony. When he got closer, Tony saw his bald head and the eye patch on his face. "Nick Fury, the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. Tony made an expression that showed he had no idea what S.H.I.E.L.D. was and said, "Ha." Nick Fury continued, "I'm here to tell you about the Avengers plan." Tony was no longer in a hurry to find food at this time. Instead, he walked to the sofa and sat down, ready to listen to what the one-eyed man in front of him had to say. "Okay, I'm seated, so please start your speech." Tony said this and extended his hand, signaling Nick Fury that he could start speaking. Nick Fury looked at Tony and said, "Hey, Tony, don't care. I just told you, you're not the only superhero in this world." Tony interrupted Nick Fury nonchalantly. "Oh, did you? Well, you did. But before you told me, I knew it. And I know someone who knows him." Nick Fury was interrupted by Tony, but he knew that Tony was talking about Li Hung. He had already learned from Coulson that Tony knew Li Hung. But because he was interrupted, he had to recompose his tone and speak again. Chapter 42. Then you should think about it. When an unexpected enemy appears one day and threatens the safety of the entire world, what will you do? "Hey, Jarvis, order me a large pizza. I'm starving." Tony ignored Nick Fury at this time, and instead asked Jarvis to order takeout for him. Seeing Tony like this, Nick Fury asked again, "What would you do?" "Oh, don't you know you've already asked this question once?" Before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by Tony again. And Tony looked at Nick Fury as if he was a fool. This time Nick Fury didn't choose to continue speaking, just waited for Tony to speak first. After waiting for a few seconds, I finally saw Tony was about to open his mouth to speak. "Oh, by the way, Jarvis, don't forget to buy 2 cheeseburgers and drinks." Unexpectedly, Tony opened his mouth and talked about takeout. Tony didn't turn around until he had explained everything to Jarvis, then he looked at Nick Fury. "What did you ask just now?" He touched his chin with one hand, thinking of Nick Fury's question just now. "Oh, what should we do when there are enemies?" "Ha, this question is funny. When an enemy appears, we just need to find his traces and defeat him. What else do we need to do?" After Tony finished speaking, Nick Fury waited cautiously for a moment before speaking. "What if you can't beat him? Then I can find someone who can beat them." Nick Fury leaned forward and stared at Tony. "What if all of you can't defeat him?" It was not known whether Tony had really thought about Nick Fury's words or was stumped by Nick Fury's oppressive aura. Tony paused and continued speaking, but his voice became smaller and smaller. "I have the most powerful weapon in the world, and I can continue to develop new weapons based on weaknesses. Look, you are no longer as confident as you were just now. It seems that you have already started to think, what should we do if we cannot defeat the enemy? And the Avengers plan I am going to talk about is born for this purpose." Tony didn't say anything, just looked at Nick Fury quietly to see what he would say. "That's what I'm saying. When we are defeated, we still won't give up, but gather together to fight. If we fail, then we will become Avengers. That's what I mean by the Avengers." After listening to what Nick Fury said, Tony fell into deep thought. "Then wait until Jarvis says, 'Sir, your takeaway has arrived.'" Nick Fury stood up, nodded to Tony, and left. At this time, Pepper came in with the takeaway box. She raised the takeaway in her hand and asked Tony. "Tony, you're awake, did you order these?" Tony came back to his senses when he heard Pepper's voice. "Oh, yes, that's right, I ordered it. Where have you been?" Pepper put the things on the table and said, "I went to the company to deal with some things this afternoon and just came back." Tony opened the package and let Pepper take a slice of pizza, and he also took a slice and started eating. After eating 2 bites, Pepper thought of Ethan and said, "Tony, did you call Ethan?" Tony, who was eating pizza, paused, obviously he didn't remember. "Jarvis, tell Ethan to come down for pizza." "Okay sir, I've told Mr. Ethan." After they finished eating and Pepper and Ethan went to bed, Tony sat alone in front of the large French window in the living room, still thinking about what Nick Fury had said. Just as Tony was thinking, a blue space door appeared behind him and Li Hung walked out. Li Hung, who had just walked out, saw Tony's bitter and resentful expression and knew that Nick Fury must have come to Tony and said something about revenge. Tony heard some noise behind him and looked back. When he saw it was Li Heng, he asked, "Li, why are you here so late?" Li Heng first went to find a bottle of wine, then walked to Tony, poured him a glass and said, "Look at you now. If I hadn't come to see you, would you have believed what that one-eyed man said?" "What? You mean the one-eyed dragon? He came to see you, too? What did he talk about?" When Tony heard that Nick Fury had also gone to see Li Heng, he hurriedly asked Li Heng what was going on. Li Heng asked Tony to sit down and not to rush. "He did come to me at the time, but what he said to me should be different from what you said. After all, I am just an ordinary person who suddenly gained abilities. He wanted me to go to S.H.I.E.L.D. and do things under his command. In simple terms, it means working for him." Tony was very surprised to hear Li Heng say this. He didn't know that Nick Fury treated Li Heng like this. Then Li Heng continued. "But I can understand that. I don't have any background. If it were someone else, I would probably just listen to him." Tony guessed, "You didn't agree." "Of course, I threw him and the agents he brought with him out, and told him not to bother me again, otherwise he would bear the consequences. Sure enough, I guessed that you would reject him. But why did you tell me not to believe what he said to me?" "I thought about it and felt that what he said seemed to make sense." Li Heng looked at Tony. "You think what he said makes sense, based on his assumption that the enemy is undefeatable. But is there really an undefeatable enemy in this world?" Li Heng's words stumped Tony. "So my view is that we don't need to worry too much about enemies that haven't appeared yet." Li Heng knew that everything that happened in the Marvel world was finally resolved one by one, but he couldn't tell Tony directly. "You have to know that we can't guard against thieves all day long. There is no need to be too anxious. As long as we work hard to improve our own abilities, we will not be powerless when we encounter difficulties. So don't pay too much attention to what Nick Fury said. He is directly pessimistic and believes that we will definitely fail, so he puts his hope on revenge." Li Heng's words were very confident. After all, he had the system and didn't have too much to worry about. But he didn't know how to make Tony feel confident. After thinking for a long time, Li Heng decided to tell Tony about his abilities to boost his confidence and prevent him from falling into doubt and anxiety. As for Tony's thoughts, it depends on whether he can let it go. "Tony, look at me. You know my abilities. So tell me, do I have any weaknesses now?" Chapter 43. Hearing Li Heng ask this, Tony immediately became interested and focused his attention on Li Heng. But in fact, Tony has actually thought about Li Heng's situation. "Based on the abilities you displayed in front of me and the effects you caused, I have analyzed that your close combat ability is not as good as your magic. In other words, if I want to defeat you, I can just look for an opportunity to fight you in close combat." Li Heng discovered that Tony already knew a lot about him and had even thought of an effective way to fight. "That's right, but what if I tell you that I can continue to use magic to improve my physical strength? The longer the time, the more obvious the improvement effect will be. In the end, my body will be able to ignore any attack, and no means against me will work. At that time, do you think anyone can defeat me?" In order to boost Tony's confidence, Li Heng has tried his best to raise himself as high as possible. Although Li Heng is not invincible now, once Li Heng collects more weapons and increases his own strength, he will basically reach that level. Tony still couldn't believe what Li Heng said. "Li, are you telling the truth?" "Of course it's true. Everything I told you is true, but you don't believe it. Do you remember?" When Tony heard Li Heng ask this, he recalled and it seemed to be true. "Besides, think about it. By then, I will be very powerful in magic, and you will also be the most powerful person in technology. My abilities can be enhanced, and you can continue to study your iron armor and upgrade it. In this way, we will join forces, and you won't have to worry anymore, right? Also, I don't mean not to make any preparations, but to keep a good mindset and not get stuck in a rut. This way, even if we really encounter an enemy, a good mindset can help us fight better. You must have been frightened by the words of the one-eyed dragon today, and your mindset has been messed up." Tony was actually very grateful when he heard that Li Heng spent a lot of time cheering him up. And through Li Heng's description, Tony also felt that he really should not be as pessimistic as Nick Fury, so Tony adjusted his mentality, stopped worrying, and instead worked hard to improve himself. After Li Heng's persuasion, Tony finally stopped considering Nick Fury's alliance. After all, in comparison, Li Heng's words were more convincing. As for why Li Heng tried so hard to prevent Tony from joining the Avengers, it was simply because he didn't like Cyclops' style and didn't want to have anything to do with him. Tony, who had come to his senses, picked up the bottle of wine on the table, poured a full glass of wine for himself and Li Heng, and the two of them started drinking. However, after saying so much to Tony, Li Heng felt that the pressure on him suddenly increased. This meant that he had to start working hard to master the power of space, improve his strength, and do what he said as soon as possible, otherwise it would be bad if he was exposed the next time something happened. So after returning home, Li Heng increased the time he spent using the power of space to exercise his body every day. He wanted to quickly use the power of space to temper his body, increase his physical strength, and improve his abilities. But in this way, he would not have much time to go to the company, so Lin Yi could only continue to be busy alone. Once my physical strength increases, I can take a break. In the early days of the Marvel world, no one could easily be my opponent. Li Heng was sitting on the bed, thinking this in his heart. But after experimenting on his bed for an hour, he still didn't find a way to use the power of space to strengthen his body. The imagined way of using the power of space to temper his body, well, that was purely Li Heng's imagination. After trying for a long time, there was no movement. The power of space didn't move at all. Li Heng had no choice but to lie down on the bed. Forget it, I can't do it now. Besides, it's too late today. I'd better go to bed first. But I will fight it to the death next time. I don't believe that there will be no movement at all. So in the next few days, Li Heng experimented with various methods, trying his best to draw the power of space into his body, but either there was no movement, or the power of space caused damage inside the body, forcing Li Heng to use the magic wand and use healing magic to speed up recovery. So Li Heng increased the number of experiments, but so far there is no sign of success, which makes Li Heng very helpless. The days passed quickly when you focused on one thing, and soon it was summer. That day, Li Heng received a call from Tony. Hey, Li, this summer is too hot, so Pepper and I, and Ethan, we decided to get on my private yacht and go sea fishing together. How about it? Are you interested in sea fishing? Do you want to come with us? It just so happened that these days, Li Heng was worried about not being able to successfully improve his physical strength. Now he heard that Tony and the others were going to go sea fishing. Li Heng thought, since it still doesn't work after such a long time, why don't I just go and have some fun? As for increasing my strength, I can only leave it to fate. Then Li Heng accepted Tony's invitation and prepared to follow them to see what the so-called sea fishing was like. The next morning, Li Hengju arrived at Tony's villa at the time Tony said. After meeting up with Tony and the others, they set out to the harbor where Tony docked his yacht. When Li Heng saw Tony's yacht, he was still shocked by Tony's wealth. The yacht in front of him was not what Li Heng had imagined, it was just an ordinary boat. Li Heng estimated that the ship was about 100 meters long, looked very luxurious and had a high-tech appearance. At this time, Tony came over and stood beside Li Heng and Ethan. How about it? My boat is the largest yacht in the United States now. Do you like it? After Tony asked, Li Heng concealed the surprise on his face. He had to admit that he had only seen yachts of this size on the news. Ethan's expression next to him didn't change much, and Tony, who was only paying attention to Li Heng, didn't notice that Ethan's expression had also changed. However, Li Heng ignored Tony's showing off in front of him and went straight onto the boat through the passage. Tony saw that Li Heng ignored him, crossed his arms over his chest, and said loudly. Hey, Li, you can't do this, you haven't answered my question yet. Just as Tony was complaining loudly, Ethan walked past him without paying any attention to him, leaving Tony with his back. This made Tony feel a little indignant. He finally found the opportunity, but the two men didn't take it. This made Tony feel uncomfortable. At this time, Pepper came over and patted Tony gently. Okay, don't stand here, hurry up. As she spoke, Pepper also walked towards the boat. Seeing that Pepper did the same, Tony finally stopped posing and jogged to catch up with Pepper, putting his arm around her waist and getting on the boat together. Chapter 44. After getting on the boat, Tony took Li Heng and Ethan to visit the interior decoration of the yacht, and then asked Jarvis to set off to go sea fishing at a location that had been selected in advance. Only then did Ethan realize that there was no one else on the boat except the four of them. After hearing Ethan's words, Tony took off his sunglasses and looked at Ethan. Of course it's just us, Ethan. You have to know that we are here to rest, and I don't want anyone else to disturb us. And didn't I tell you that after my modification, this ship can be perfectly controlled by Jarvis, and we don't need to worry about it at all. After saying this, Tony pulled Pepper to their room. Well, we still have a long way to go to our destination, so let's go and rest first. You can find any room on the second floor and use it as your own room to rest, or if you want to bask in the sun on the deck, I don't object. Anyway, Jarvis will tell us when we get there. Lee Hung and Ethan were left on the deck looking at each other. When Pepper was pulled away by Tony, she said, "Oh, Tony, shall we just leave them on the deck like this?" Tony didn't care. "It's okay, don't worry. Don't worry about them. We haven't enjoyed some time together for a long time." Watching Tony and Pepper go upstairs, Lee Hung called Ethan. "It seems that Tony won't show up before we arrive. It just so happens, Ethan, I have something to ask you." As Lee Hung spoke, he looked up at the sun in the sky. "The deck is too hot. Let's go inside and have a drink to cool down. Then we can talk about what I want to ask." Lee Hung saw that Ethan wanted to ask him what was going on, so he quickly walked into the lobby on the first floor, got out a bottle of wine, and poured it for Ethan and himself. Lee Hung took a sip of cold beer and felt much cooler. Then he asked Ethan. "Ethan, I only know that you seem to be a doctor. Or a doctor." After saying this, Lee Hung felt embarrassed. "Sorry. It's okay, it's normal that you don't know." Ethan waved his hand indifferently, and continued. "It's okay for you to call me doctor, because I studied medicine and I want to do something for the people in my hometown. Let's not talk about this anymore." Ethan took a sip of wine. "I also know a little bit about integrated circuits, and a few languages." After hearing Ethan say that he was a doctor and knew something about integrated circuits, Lee Hung knew that Ethan was not the person he was looking for. Lee Hung wanted to find someone who knew biology. Seeing Lee Hung's expression, Ethan asked. "What's wrong, Lee? What do you want to do by asking these questions?" So Lee Hung told Ethan his idea. "I want my friends and family to be healthy, so I want to find someone to help me research serums that can strengthen their bodies, but I don't have any knowledge in this area." Lee Hung looked at Ethan. "Originally I thought you knew something about biology, but luckily you're good at medicine, so you should be able to help." Ethan asked curiously. "What if you don't understand? Do you have to start from scratch? The chances of success are too small. I don't recommend you do this." Lee Hung listened to Ethan's advice and knew that he was thinking about himself and didn't want him to waste his time on serum medicine. But Lee Hung knew very well that in the coming period, various superheroes with super serums would appear one after another. By that time, it would be easy for Lee Hung to collect some serum. So Lee Hung explained to Ethan. "It's okay, Ethan, you don't have to worry about me. After a while, you'll know what I'm going to do. I'm not in a hurry now." Finally, around noon, Jarvis' voice finally rang out. "Attention, passengers! The yacht has arrived at the designated sea area." Then Lee Hung saw Tony and Pepper coming down from the stairs together. Pepper put on a sun hat because she didn't want to get tanned after going out. Lee Hung and Ethan looked at each other and laughed, because they saw that Tony's clothes were not as neat as before, and one of the buttons was wrong. Just as several people were preparing to go to the deck, Lee Hung seemed to remember something. He took out his wand and released a protective magic to block ultraviolet rays, so that they would not have to worry about getting tanned or sunburned. As Lee Hung began to wave his wand, Tony turned his head and saw him. "Lee, what is this?" "Oh, Tony, this magic is to prevent ultraviolet rays, so you won't get a tan." Tony couldn't help but roll his eyes when he heard Lee Hung's words. Just when he was about to express that he wasn't afraid of getting tanned, and wanted to argue with Lee Hung about this matter, he heard Pepper screaming. "What? Lee, are you serious? It can protect me from the sun, so I don't have to wear a hat." Lee Hung looked at Pepper. "Of course it works. If you don't believe me, just wait and see what we look like." Then Lee Hung and Ethan came to the deck and watched Tony go sea fishing there. Tony vowed to give a performance to Lee Hung and Ethan because neither of them had ever been involved in sea fishing. After learning Tony's moves, Lee Hung and Ethan also began to try them. At noon, Tony took out the prepared ingredients and wanted to make something to eat. "These are the ingredients you brought, why not the finished product?" Li Hung asked curiously when he saw the ingredients Tony took out. Are you going to do it yourself? Tony answered Li Hung while he was busy. Of course, since we are out to relax, we must also experience the feeling of making our own food. Looking at the badly made burger in Tony's hand, Li Hung had a bad feeling. Sure enough, Tony said, Li, you should know how to make hamburgers, right? I've eaten them, and they taste great. At this time, Ethan said beside him. Oh, Li, now that Tony says so, I want to try one of your burgers. Li Hung looked at Ethan and said, Oh? Are you sure you're not disgusted with Tony's cooking? Ethan shook his head quickly but said nothing. Okay, Tony, put down what you're holding and let me have the burgers for lunch. As he spoke, Li Hung started to make hamburgers. Then Tony happily threw away the messy burger in his hand and went to enjoy the scenery of the sea happily with Pepper. However, with Ethan's help, Li Hung quickly made several cheeseburgers. Sitting beautifully in a chair and eating a hamburger, Li Hung asked Jarvis to turn on the news. He wanted to hear if there were any big events happening recently. Li Hung had been worried about strengthening his body recently and had reduced the time he spent watching the news. Li Hung, who was eating a hamburger, was suddenly attracted by a piece of news. Our reporter suddenly received news that the army led by General Ross is fighting a strange giant. According to preliminary statistics, many houses have been damaged and many pedestrians have been killed. Hearing this, Li Hung sat up suddenly. Chapter 45. After hearing about General Ross and the big monster in the news, Li Hung knew that it must be the Hulk. Then Li Hung became happy. He didn't expect that he would hear the news about the Hulk from the news so soon. And from what the reporter reported, this must be the final battle in the movie. Li Hung recalled that the birth of Hulk seemed to be because Dr. Banner was studying gamma rays for the military in the laboratory of Corvo University. Finally, due to carelessness, Dr. Banner himself was directly exposed to the gamma rays, causing the birth of Hulk in his body. Afterwards, Dr. Banner turned back into human form, but he didn't want to stay in New York anymore because he was afraid that he would release the Hulk again uncontrollably, which would cause another disaster. So Banner fled to Brazil, found a beverage processing factory and hid inside, not wanting to have any interaction with anyone. Cheese contacted a Mr. Blue on the internet, hoping to seek a solution to the Hulk from him. But accidentally, after Banner was injured, his blood fell into a drink bottle, which was filled with drink, transported to New York, and later discovered by General Ross. Ross brought a large group of people to Brazil to capture Banner. After Banner found an opportunity to escape, he returned to New York to look for his ex-girlfriend. Ethan and Tony saw Li Hung standing up suddenly, but he stood there motionless after he stood up. They didn't know that Li Hung was recalling the plot, so they thought that Li Hung had encountered something, so they carefully came to Li Hung and asked. Hey, Li, what's wrong? Li Hung came back to his senses and saw Ethan's worried eyes, as well as Tony and Pepper saying. Why don't we just call a rescue plane and take Li to the hospital? As soon as Li Hung heard it, he knew that it must be Tony who said this, but it was too exaggerated. He was just stunned for a moment, but Tony was about to call a helicopter. Okay Tony, I'm fine, something just suddenly occurred to me. I'm glad you're okay, but what did you hear that caused such a big reaction? When Li Hung heard Tony continue asking, he remembered Hulk's battle against the army in Abomination. If he didn't hurry over, he might miss it. So Li Hung said to Tony. Did you hear that big guy fighting the army on the news? Tony thought about it for a moment, then answered uncertainly. Oh, I guess I heard it, right? Li Hung said to Tony, so do you want to see the real unlimited power of the flesh? Originally, Li Hung wanted to explain the whole story to Tony, but he was afraid that Tony would not be interested, so he changed his angle, trying to get Tony's attention. As expected, Tony was amazed to hear Li Hung say that the body has unlimited power. Oh, Li, don't tell me you're talking about that big guy on the news just now. Congratulations, the answer is correct, but there is no reward. Also, do you want to go and take a look and see it? If you don't go, it may be over. Tony looked at Pepper, thought for a moment, and couldn't help his curiosity, so he said. Pepper, you and Ethan are on the boat, don't worry, I will let Jarvis drive the boat and control it so it doesn't go off the track. Li and I will go ahead and check out the situation. We will be back soon. After that, Tony asked Li Hung to wait for a moment and then shouted. Jarvis, you drive the boat. You must ensure the safety of Pepper and Ethan. Got it. Okay sir, I'll remember that. After explaining everything to Jarvis, Tony looked at Li Hung and signaled him that he could open the space gate and set off. Li Hung did not waste any time and opened a space door directly on the street next to where Hulk was fighting. Li Hung and Tony walked out from it. As soon as he walked out of the space gate, Tony felt violent vibrations and deafening noises, as well as very loud roars and the sound of the army opening fire. Tony looked surprised. How dare Ross? How dare he give the order to open fire right in the city? Hearing Tony's doubts, Li Hung took him to a place where he could see Hulk and pointed it out to him. I guess that's why he dared the army to open fire. Tony looked in the direction of Li Hung's finger. Holy crap! What is that? Is it a monster from some story that has escaped? Li Hung rolled his eyes at Tony in annoyance. That's the big guy I mentioned. He has unlimited power. As long as he remains angry, his power will continue to increase. What? Are you serious? Is there such a thing? You've already seen the existence of magic, so your ability to accept it should have improved. Why are you still so startled like a child listening to a fairy tale? This time Tony answered Li Hung directly. Humph, of course I'm surprised, because the way you described gaining power is also very abnormal. Tony looked at the fighting Hulk and observed for a while. I think that should be the unique ability of this avocado green guy, right? And he is not afraid of bullets or any physical damage. Sure enough, as you said, he has unlimited physical strength. As he spoke, Tony noticed the people on the street who were constantly being injured by mistake, as well as the houses affected by the battle between Hulk and the army. Tony looked at Li Hung. Hey, Li, can you give me a ride home? At this moment, Li also spoke. Tony, do you want to go save those injured people? The two smiled at each other. As expected, neither of them could stand Ross's strategy. Ross wanted to capture Hulk alive and bring him back for research, but he gradually found that he could not beat Hulk, which led to the current situation. However, Li Hung knew that there would be another abomination to appear next, and the damage would only get worse, so he didn't want Hulk and Abomination to continue to hurt people there. At the same time, only by participating in the battle can Li Hung have the opportunity to obtain Hulk's blood for subsequent research on the super serum. Then Li Hung moved away a little, opened the space gate for Tony, asked him to go back and put on his battle suit, and prepare to find a way to end the battle. Tony quickly returned to the villa through the space gate, put on his battle suit, and returned here through the space gate. Wow, as expected, your space gate is the fastest way to travel. Tony couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 46. Just as he was speaking, Hulk in the distance grabbed the tank's barrel with both hands, and then threw the tank hard towards the helicopter in the sky. The tank narrowly slipped under the plane and flew towards where Li Hung and Tony were standing. Li Hung saw that something was wrong. The tank was getting closer and closer to him and was about to arrive. So he hurriedly opened a space door, ran in, and avoided the flying tank. Li Hung was about to remind Tony, but it was too late. Tony, who was standing there without reacting, had bad luck. He was hit on the side by the tank thrown by Hulk and flew out. Li Hung came to Tony's side and saw that he had been knocked down a two-story building. He couldn't help but sigh. The Hulk is really strong. Ahem. Li, are you just going to stand there and watch me get buried underneath? Tony's voice came from the ruins in front of him. Li Hung laughed and teased him. Tony, it's just a small ruin, you can get out easily, why do you need my help? Have you really become a child? As soon as Li Hung finished speaking, there was a loud bang. Tony decisively used the laser cannon to blast away the things buried in his body, flew out, and then raised his middle finger towards Li Hung. Li Hung saw Tony's gratitude and was about to speak when he heard Tony's voice. Okay, I won't talk to you anymore. I'm going to teach this big avocado a lesson. After saying that, Tony flew directly towards Hulk, ready to experience how powerful he was. Seeing Tony's confident look, Li Hung remembered that he had already told Tony all the characteristics of the Hulk, so he just went with Tony. It would be okay for him to feel it for himself. So Li Hung began to focus his attention on the battle scene and its surroundings to see if there were any people trapped and unable to escape. He went to rescue those people and directly cleared the area around the battlefield where Tony and Hulk were. When Li Hung finally had some free time and watched Tony and the Hulk fighting, he found that it was not quite what he had expected. Li Hung originally thought, even if Tony couldn't beat Hulk, with the flexibility of his battle suit, he could still harass Hulk very well and would not be easily defeated by Hulk. But what Li Hung saw was, Tony did not make full use of his flexibility, but tried every means to find opportunities to test the limits of Hulk's strength. This head-on confrontation caused Tony to gradually lose the upper hand. After all, Hulk was immune to physical damage, but Tony's suit was damaged and there was no way to repair it. Seeing that Tony was gradually losing to Hulk and was constantly hit by Hulk's punches, Li Hung hurried forward and caught the flying Tony. "Hey Tony, how are you?" Tony, who had regained his feet, said, "I'm fine. How can you fight him head-on? Haven't I already told you about his strength and characteristics?" "Oh, actually I remembered what you said, but I still couldn't help wanting to experiment. You know, when I met such an unusual experimental subject, I couldn't help myself. On the other side, Hulk saw that Tony, who was knocked out, did not come back, and thought he had won, so he roared to the sky to show his strength. At this moment, a person fell from the helicopter flying in the sky. The battlefield seemed to be paused by this sudden scene. Even Hulk stopped his anger and walked forward to check on the man. Just as Hulk was getting closer and closer to him, the figure suddenly began to deform and eventually turned into a shit yellow monster. The abomination's head also became bald, and the spine behind him became more prominent, but his overall appearance became more animal-like than human. Well, compared to him, Hulk looks a bit handsome. At least Hulk can still be seen in human form. He transformed very quickly. By the time Hulk sensed something was wrong, he had already transformed and punched Hulk directly, knocking the unsuspecting Hulk away. Suddenly, Hulk was no longer calm, but became angry again, and the two big guys fought each other. Tony couldn't believe his eyes when he saw another big guy. "Li, do you know what's going on? Why is there another stinky durian?" Li Hung explained. "Didn't you see he fell from the helicopter? It must have been General Ross who did it." Okay, now that there are two fruits fighting, I can relax a bit." At this time, Li Hung, who was talking to Tony, remembered how hatred appeared. Banner and his girlfriend came to the laboratory of Mr. Blue, who was Samuel Stern, a professor at Lyme University and a biologist. When he arrived at Samuel's laboratory, he quickly stimulated Banner, turning him into the Hulk. Then Samuel took out a bottle of medicine he made and injected it into Hulk's body. Slowly, the green color on Hulk's body began to disappear and he turned back into Banner's appearance. This made Banner very happy, and he thought Samuel had cured him. But Samuel's next words poured cold water on Banner. "Perhaps, the effect is not as good as you think. It may have improved the condition, or it may have just suppressed it, but not eradicated it. I'm not sure." "What? How could that be?" Banner's girlfriend became excited, but Banner had already let it go. "At least it's useful now, isn't it?" Samuel then shows Banner the serum he made using Banner's blood, but Banner advises him not to do so and expresses his objection. But at this moment, Ross and his army had arrived outside the laboratory, and used a tranquilizer gun on Banner through the window. This time, Hulk was lured out again. Just as Hulk went outside to fight, Brinsky, who was injured while arresting Banner, entered the laboratory, found Professor Samuel who was hiding, and asked if there was any way to make him as powerful as Hulk. After getting an affirmative answer, Brinsky asked Samuel to inject him with the Hulk serum, and thus, the abomination was born. Thinking of this, Li Hung asked Tony to observe the situation on the battlefield first, while he went to Samuel's laboratory. If he remembered correctly, Samuel was a great research talent and was proficient in biology. Li Hung wanted to see if he could recruit him for his own use. Teleported to Samuel's laboratory, Li Hung saw Samuel who was knocked unconscious by abomination. So Li Hung was not in a hurry, but sat down and waited for him to wake up. Chapter 47. Samuel was knocked flying by Brinsky who transformed into abomination, crashed into the machine next to him, and then fainted. However, because abomination was focused on fighting Hulk, Samuel was not seriously injured and he woke up a few minutes later. Li Hung was waiting for him on a chair nearby. He saw Samuel wake up, but still pretended to faint and lay on the ground. Through the changes in Samuel's breathing, Li Hung discovered that he had woken up. He should be preparing to pretend to faint and check whether the surrounding environment was safe first. From this point of view, Li Hung felt that he was still a little smart. However, thinking that Tony was still facing two big monsters outside, Li Hung decided to complete his goal quickly and not waste time here anymore. Then Li Hung said to Samuel on the ground, Okay, Professor Samuel, I know you're awake. I'm short on time, so I'll make it short. I hope you can come and work for me to study the super serum, and I can continue to provide you with blood. You also know what's happening now, and you also know what you've done, so think carefully about what you'll be like when everything is over. After waking up, Samuel finally figured out his current situation. He was secretly studying the Hulk serum, and had some initial results. In addition, he created an abomination, so there was no doubt that he would be the primary target of all major organizations next, and if they failed to win him over, those people would not give up easily and would just make him disappear from this world. In addition, the man in front of him said that he would have the opportunity to continue studying the serum, and Samuel almost couldn't help but agree to him directly. But after calming down, Samuel began to worry whether what this person said was true and whether he could achieve what he said. Then Samuel stood up from the ground, looked at Li Heng and said, "How do I know if you are just treating me as a tool like them? And can you do what you promised? How can you guarantee my safety?" When Li Heng heard Samuel ask this, he knew that he was moved, but he still had some concerns. As long as he could dispel his worries, he would be able to do research for him with peace of mind. So Li Heng said, "I came to find you because I was attracted by your research results, and I want to use them with stronger effects, so you don't have to worry about me exploiting you. As for the last two questions..." Li Heng didn't say anything, just raised his hand and waved, then he disappeared from Samuel's sight. Samuel saw Li Heng disappear, and was so surprised that he didn't know whether he should take this opportunity to escape. The next moment, Li Heng's voice came from behind him. "Look, I'll show you my abilities first, and then if you agree, I'll assign you 2 bodyguards to ensure your safety. These 2 bodyguards are extraordinary, and I'll send you directly to my secret base in this way, so no one will be able to find where you are." As he spoke, Li Heng opened the space door leading to the warehouse, walked over and showed it to Samuel. Samuel hesitated for a moment and felt that Li Heng was more polite and seemed easy to talk to, unlike those violent organizations. Thinking of this, Samuel shuddered. He didn't want to fall into those people's hands. So Samuel decided to follow Li Heng from now on, and prepared to collect all the sera and samples in the laboratory and pack them up to bring over. Li Heng saw Samuel's movements and thought they were too slow, so he stopped him. "Wait a minute, this is too slow, let me do it." Then Li Heng took out his magic wand and waved it while saying, "Here comes the serum. Here comes the sample." Under Samuel's shocked gaze, all the sera and experimental samples in the laboratory flew towards Li Heng as if they had their own consciousness. Then it flew into Li Heng's hand and disappeared. The whole process lasted only a few seconds and Li Heng finished the task. Then he extended his hand to Samuel, inviting him to walk through the space gate. Seeing another ability demonstrated by Li Heng, Samuel felt more reassured, so he quickly walked into the space gate. The moment he walked over, Samuel found that he was no longer in the laboratory, but in a warehouse located somewhere unknown. Li Heng said to Samuel, "Professor, this will be your laboratory for now. We will build you a new laboratory later. Next, let me introduce you to your 2 bodyguards." As Li Heng spoke, he called over Little Zudge and Zhuanlun. "This is Professor Samuel. He is researching the Super Serum project. You must take good care of the professor and ensure his safety." "Yes, Master." Xiao Zudge and Zhuanlun agreed to Li Heng's arrangement. Seeing this, Samuel felt that his worldview had changed. Because he saw a robot, and it seemed to be a robot with artificial intelligence. Although he was not a researcher of artificial intelligence, he knew that anyone who could possess complete artificial intelligence with emotions was definitely not an ordinary person. While Samuel was still staring at Xiao Zudge and Zhuanlun in a daze, Li Hengjun came over and patted him on the shoulder. "I still have things to do. You stay here first and let Xiao Zudge introduce our place to you. I'll come over in the evening and we'll talk in detail then." After saying that, Li Heng teleported directly back to the battlefield between Hulk and Abomination. As soon as he appeared, Li Heng saw 2 big guys fighting each other with their fists, and Tony who was harassing them from time to time by launching a missile. Seeing Li Heng reappear, Tony no longer flew into the sky to harass the 2 big guys, but landed next to Li Heng. "Hey, Li, why did you disappear for so long? If you wait any longer, the 2 of them will decide the winner." Pointing at Hulk and Abomination, Tony said that Li Heng came back too late. Li Heng explained, "I can't help it. Something happened and it delayed us a bit. But fortunately, they won't give up on each other easily. Li Hyung said as he looked towards Hulk and Abomination. At this time, Hulk used both hands to hug Abomination's neck tightly from behind, trying to attack from the neck. But Abomination didn't want to let Hulk succeed, so he accelerated backwards and crashed into the building next to him, then kept smashing Hulk on his back against the wall. Tony looked in the direction Li Hung was looking and found that the two monsters were fighting hard and it was not easy to determine the winner. He immediately felt that he was slapped in the face, so he put down the mask of his combat suit and continued to harass the two without saying a word. Chapter 48. Seeing Tony's look, Li Hung was actually very happy because he had won over Tony again. Seeing Tony coming forward to continue his meaningless harassment, Li Hung shouted at Tony. "Tony, come back first. You can't stay like this. They will keep fighting." After hearing what Li Hung said, Tony felt it made sense. After all, he had been watching Hulk and Abomination fighting from the beginning until now, and it seemed as if they had endless energy, and they had not suffered any injuries yet. So Tony flew back and landed next to Li Hung and asked. "Do you have any ideas? Get rid of them quickly. My hard-earned leisure time is being wasted." Li Hung said to Tony. "I've told you before that they are very strong in terms of physical strength and physical defense. Let me exaggerate a little bit. If their physical defense value is 1000, then their resistance to magic should be 1. After hearing Li Hung's explanation, Tony obviously didn't expect that the big guy who looked so ferocious in battle had almost no resistance to magic. "Doesn't this mean that you just happened to restrain them?" Li Hung felt Tony's gaze, so he quickly coughed, stood up straight, put one hand behind his back, pretending to be a hermit, ready to accept Tony's gaze. "You're right, that's it." Just when Li Hung was ready to accept Tony's admiring gaze, Tony said. "Why don't you take care of them quickly so we can go back and rest?" Seeing that Tony didn't cooperate with him at all, Li Hung had no choice but to tell Tony. Okay. But I still need to find an opportunity to get rid of both of them in one fell swoop. This requires Tony. You go and help me attract their attention so that I can find an opportunity nearby." "Really?" Tony didn't know whether he should believe Li Hung's words. "Oh, really, of course it's true. How could I lie to you? Just go over there quickly." After taking 2 careful looks at Li Hung, Tony returned to the battlefield and continued his harassment. Li Hung was slowly looking for an opportunity on the side. In the middle of the battle, Hulk was knocked away again by the powerful Abomination. It might be because he was injected with an inhibitor by Samuel in the laboratory, which made the Abomination even more excited. He began to attack Hulk frantically, punching him hard on the body. Hulk passively defended for a while, silently accumulating strength, and when the Abomination let down his guard, he suddenly exerted force and kicked the Abomination away, scaring Tony who was flying in the sky. Because the direction the Abomination was flying was towards Tony's position. If Tony hadn't changed direction quickly, he would have been hit by the flying Abomination. Then Hulk caught up with the Abomination who had landed on the ground, picked up the car next to him, and smashed it into the Abomination. The two men then started a real man fight, punching each other without stopping. The two men are evenly matched, and it is unlikely that a winner will be determined in a short period of time. Tony, who was almost hit just now, shouted to Li Hung. "Hey, Li, have you found an opportunity? Get rid of them quickly. Otherwise, the scope of their battle will become larger and larger." After hearing what Tony said, Li Hung stopped being a spectator and instead waited for the right moment. When Hulk and Abomination separated and were about to fight each other, he took out his wand and cast several spells in succession. Tony fell from the sky and looked at the 2 ice lumps in front of him that were frozen by Li Hung's magic. He was amazed and couldn't help but walk forward and touch them with his hand. "Wow, Li, that's amazing, did you just freeze them?" Li Hung also came to the ice lump at this time and said. "Of course it wasn't a simple freezing magic. I first used magic to trap their minds, and then turned them into ice sculptures after they lost control of their bodies." Then Li Hung walked between Hulk and Abomination's fist and showed it to Tony. "Look, it's safe now. It's been resolved." Before he could finish his words, he heard a very angry roar, and then in a very short time, the ice around Hulk shattered, and then the punch that stopped in mid-air continued to hit forward. Because it happened so suddenly, Li Hung started to open the space door and couldn't escape. Seeing the fist gradually getting bigger, Li Hung made up his mind and decided not to run away, because it was too late. So Li Hung turned to covering his body with the force of space to achieve a buffering effect, but time waits for no one, and there is still some space force in the body that cannot be used. Tony was listening to Li Heng talking, and then in a very short time, a series of scenes happened, the ice broke, Hulk continued to punch, and Li Heng was knocked away. By the time Tony reacted, Li Heng had already flown dozens of meters away. Then Hulk broke out of the ice and targeted Tony, who wanted to fly over to check on Li Heng's condition. Tony had no choice but to stop and continue to fight with Hulk. Li Heng only felt the pain in his body when he was knocked to the ground. Li Heng slowly stood up from the ground and moved his body a little. He was very surprised to find that he only felt pain but no other injuries. So he carefully checked his body to see if there was anything different, and discovered that his body seemed to have absorbed a little bit of spatial force. So Li Heng guessed that it was very likely that at the moment when he was about to be hit by Milligram's fist, his body was extremely tense, and there was still some space force remaining in his body. Then when he was hit, he finally accelerated the absorption of space force and successfully enhanced his body's strength. This discovery made Li Heng's eyes light up when he looked at Hulk. The problem that had been bothering him for a long time was unexpectedly solved by this unintentional mistake. At this moment, Li Heng heard Tony's voice. It turned out that Tony saw Li Heng stand up, and while dodging Hulk's fist, he asked Li Heng how he was. "Hey, Li, how are you? Anything all right?" Li Heng returned to that position and heard Tony teasing him. "Oh, Li, you're safe. It's already been solved, that's how it was solved." Li Heng said. "Oh, I didn't expect that. It must be the mental difficulties I created for them that caused Hulk's anger, causing his strength to surge and regain control of his body, which is why it turned out like this." Tony asked. "So what's next? It's obvious that your method doesn't work. What are you going to do?" At this time, Li Heng said affirmatively, "Don't worry, I have a new method, and it will definitely work this time." After saying that, Li Heng rolled up his sleeves, motioned Tony to make way, and then Li Heng walked towards Hulk. Chapter 49. Li Heng walked forward, gestured to Hulk and stared into his eyes. Tony saw Li Heng's action and said, "He, Li, you're not upset because of this, are you? You can't just keep going like this." Li Heng turned to Tony and said, "It's okay, don't worry, I know what's going on." Just when Li Heng turned his head to talk to Tony, Hulk saw that Li Heng was still so nonchalant when facing him, so he became even angrier and punched Li Heng directly, trying to knock Li Heng out. The result was that Li Heng directly took a defensive stance, ready to take Hulk's punch. So Tony saw that when Li Heng received the punch from Hulk, he was knocked away directly, but this time he stopped after flying only 30 meters. After knocking Li Heng away, Hulk snorted loudly, expressing his disdain in the direction of Li Heng. Then he looked at Tony. Tony found that Hulk's target had become him again, so he didn't bother to worry about Li Heng's situation again and prepared to fly into the sky to hide. At this moment, Li Heng's voice sounded. "Hey, Hulk, your target is me." Tony and Hulk heard the sound at the same time and turned around to look. When they saw Li Heng standing up, they showed different expressions. Tony was shocked. He didn't expect that Li Heng was fine after taking a solid punch from Hulk. Then Hulk's face showed anger. He couldn't understand why the man in front of him could not be defeated. So Hulk turned around to face Li Heng, and rushed forward and punched him again. Li Heng was knocked out again, but this time the distance was much closer, only a dozen meters. Hulk, who was filled with anger, didn't care and attacked Li Heng, but Tony next to him saw it clearly. Li Heng was being beaten closer and closer, and he could even take Hulk's punch. Seeing this, Tony finally understood why Li Heng wanted to confront Hulk head-on. It turned out that he wanted to hone his strength through Hulk, increase his body's absorption of spatial force, and thus quickly enhance his physical strength. After a few rounds, Li Heng was able to compete with Hulk in strength. After a few more rounds, Li Heng was able to suppress Hulk, who had been given an inhibitor. Li Heng was having fun playing when he heard Tony's voice. "Hey, Li, I think you're almost there, so let's get rid of this avocado." After hearing what Tony said, Li Heng realized that he was too happy about the improvement in his strength that he had finally made, and he was so focused on fighting with Hulk that he forgot that he came here to solve the problem. Now after Tony's reminder, Li Heng finally remembered. Then Li Heng felt it. After continuous punching with Hulk, his own strength had increased to the point where there was no further improvement. It seemed that the Hulk, who had taken the inhibitor, no longer put any pressure on Li Heng. So Li Heng took the opportunity to prepare to solve the problems of Hulk and Abomination. Next, Li Heng gathered his strength and used his maximum power to punch Hulk, knocking him to the ground and creating a big hole. Then Li Heng and Tony came to the edge of the pit and looked at Hulk, who was unable to get up for a while. Holixiot! Li, is this your power? In the morning, you were still a magician, and now you have become a superhuman. When Li Heng heard what Tony said, he raised his middle finger at him, then took out his magic wand and used mind-soothing magic on Hulk. Then, in the eyes of the two men, the big green-skinned Hulk slowly turned into a middle-aged man with a somewhat decadent temperament. Seeing the man's face, Tony said, "Oh, I think I've seen this face before. Who is it?" Li Heng walked into the bottom of the pit and said to the man who had regained consciousness, "Dr. Banner, how are you?" "Oh, yes, you are Dr. Banner, I know you." Tony followed Li Heng, and when he heard the name Li Heng called him, he remembered that the man in front of him was Banner. "But how did you become like this?" Tony wondered. Banner glanced at the two people in front of him, then looked at Tony, whom he knew. "Tony Stark, why are you here? Why am I like this? Where is this?" Li Heng helped Banner out of the pit, and then found that General Ross's helicopter, which had been flying in the sky, had begun to land after seeing Banner recover. Looking at Ross walking towards the few people, Li Heng signaled Tony to go forward and stop Ross first. He wanted to say a few words to Banner. "Tony, I want to talk to Dr. Banner. Could you please stop Ross from coming over? Let him come over after we're done talking." "Oh, okay. But what are you going to say?" Tony wondered. "I just want to try and see if I can get another reliable doctor here. After all, if he follows me, I can ensure his condition and won't bring out the Hulk." Then, when Tony was trying to stop Ross from getting close to Banner, Li Heng briefly told Banner everything that happened after he transformed into the Hulk. "Oh my god, look what I have done." Banner looked at the mess around him in disbelief. He began to feel guilty and self-blame, and hated himself for becoming like this. Li Heng looked at Banner and said, "Dr. Banner, now that you're awake, would you like to consider where you're going next?" Banner sat on the ground and looked at Li Heng. "Where else can I go? You saw what I looked like. Even if I hid in Brazil, I was eventually found." Li Heng said to Banner, "If you agree, you can stay at my place for a while. I just told you that my current strength is enough to compete with Hulk. Plus, I have a way to soothe Hulk's mind and calm him down, so I am confident that I can keep you in this state." At this moment, Tony and Ross started arguing, and Ross even started to speak in his loud voice. "Tony Stark, you have no right to stop me. And he is an experimental subject of our military. There is no way I will let you interfere." After hearing what Ross said, Banner glanced at Li Heng. "Look, this is Ross's attitude. Can you convince him to agree?" When Li Heng heard what Banner said, he knew that as long as he could deal with Ross, Banner, who was already interested in what he said about being able to maintain his current state of life, would most likely agree to follow Li Heng for a while. Chapter 50. So Li Heng came to Tony and said to him, "Okay, thank you Tony, we've finished talking. Now we should be able to clean up and leave." "Oh? What did you say?" Tony was very curious. Because he saw that Banner was now following Li Heng, he didn't know how Li Heng had convinced Banner in just a few minutes to stop thinking about leaving here and instead stay. Li Heng, "Oh, I just told Banner that I have a way to control his condition, and I can also find a way to solve his problem in the future." "So?" Li Heng said that facing the fact that he has the ability to control and solve problems, Banner will definitely not think about staying away from people and avoiding harming ordinary people. He also needs to live. As the two were talking, Ross heard what was going on and became furious. "Who are you? You can't take Banner away. He belongs to our military now." As he spoke, Ross had already begun to command his soldiers, aiming at Li Heng and Banner. As for Tony, he didn't dare to attack him yet. When Li Heng saw Ross's look, he immediately felt very happy. Because Li Heng was thinking about finding an opportunity to teach Ross a lesson, his tone was really annoying. Moreover, Li Heng is not afraid of Cyclops and his shield, so he would be afraid of you, an ordinary person. Even though Ross is a general, Li Heng still decided to teach him a lesson. So when he saw the soldier behind Ross raising his gun and aiming at himself and Banner, Li Heng's eyes changed, and he looked at Ross as if he was looking at an ant. Li Heng usually ignored the provocations of Ant, but when facing the arrogant Ross, Li Heng decided to teach him a lesson. However, since they were in public, Li Heng only moved his hands, and immediately all the guns in the soldiers' hands broke into two pieces in the middle, with extremely smooth cross-sections. Seeing this scene, there was some commotion among the soldiers. "Quiet, please be quiet." At this time, Ross saw that the situation was not right, so he quickly calmed the soldiers and then looked at Li Heng. "Why, you want to show me your abilities, what do you want to say? I will not be threatened by you." Hearing Ross's deliberately heroic words, Li Heng and Tony looked at each other and laughed, because they both knew that Li Heng didn't mean that at all. "Oh, don't get me wrong, I don't mean to threaten you." Ross didn't believe what Li Heng said. He thought Li Heng was just refusing to admit it. Li Heng said, "I will show you a small part of my ability, just to tell you that no one can stop me from doing what I want to do." Then he looked at the soldiers behind Ross. "Not even the army. So I don't need to threaten you at all. I just do what I want to do." Well, Li Heng also knew that what he said was a bit arrogant, but after what Master Guyi said last time, he knew that Guyi would not care about what he did, so Li Heng now became bolder. So after saying this, Li Heng ignored Ross and looked at Tony and Banner. "Then let's go, it's over." "Okay, okay." Banner was probably shocked by Li Heng's performance just now. But Tony said to Li Heng, "You're ready to leave, so what about this?" Tony said, pointing at the abomination that had turned into an ice sculpture. Li Heng slapped his head, wondering how could he have forgotten about him. "Then discuss with Tony." "Tony, this is a good test sample. Do you want to use it for experiments?" Tony listened to Li Heng's words, then turned around and looked at the disgusted look. "Oh, he's so ugly, I won't use him as a sample." When Li Heng heard this, he said, "If you don't want it, then I'll take it." "Okay, I'll put it away then." After saying that, Li Heng directly teleported the ice sculpture abomination into the warehouse. Then he took Tony and Banner back to the yacht. Ross was watching the whole process. After seeing the abilities Li Heng had demonstrated, Ross didn't dare to step forward to stop Li Heng's actions. He could only watch Li Heng put away his hatred and leave with Banner. After Li Heng and his men left, Ross called one of his men and said loudly, "I want to know all the information about that person in the shortest possible time." "Yes, General." The men hurried to collect relevant information about Li Heng. Just as Ross was about to leave, he was stopped by people from the city of New York, who wanted him to compensate for the damage he had caused to New York. Ross, who was in a bad mood, scolded the man, then left with his men, leaving only one person to deal with these matters. Li Heng brought Tony and Banner directly to the yacht. Pepper and Ethan quickly came forward to ask, "How are you injured? We saw a little bit of the video on TV." Several people came to the living room on the first floor of the yacht and sat down, and then Tony explained the matter in detail. Li Heng quickly sent a message to Xiao Zuch, otherwise he would definitely be frightened by the hatred that Li Heng suddenly sent over. "Xiao Zuch, how is Samuel? Also, I just sent a big ice sculpture over, don't worry about it for now, I'll tell you when I get back." Li Heng only felt relieved when he received the reply from Little Zuch and saw that everything was normal. Then we had a drink together and introduced ourselves to each other. After hearing Pepper say that she and Ethan saw some footage of Li Heng and Tony fighting Hulk on live TV, Li Heng knew that there must have been someone around who was not afraid of death and risked his life to shoot the video and then broadcast it. However, although Li Heng does not want to attract attention in a particularly high-profile manner now, he will not deliberately hide his own affairs. If he is photographed again in the future, Li Heng does not care and will just take things as they come. So this time, knowing that someone had filmed a video, Li Heng did not intend to reduce the related popularity. It was a good opportunity to improve his reputation and see what the big gift package would reveal. At Pepper's request, Ethan gave Tony and Li Heng a quick check and found that there were no major problems. Only then did Pepper feel relieved. But Banner was always absent-minded, and then Tony asked, "Okay, Banner, now that everything is over, let's just play here for a while." As soon as the words fell, they were strongly opposed by Pepper. She felt that it was obviously not suitable to continue playing when encountering such a thing in the middle of playing. In addition, Banner was not in a good state, so Pepper suggested, "Let's go back. We can hang out again next time we have a chance." "You guys," Pepper looked at Tony, Li Heng, and Banner, you all need to go back and have a good rest. Tony had no choice but to listen to Pepper and let Jarvis drive the boat back to the port. After getting off the boat, Li Hung led everyone back to Tony's villa.